maybe be a little less patient with people today. If we see stuff that's obviously trying to take down the live, let's mute it for 5 minutes. Hope it goes away. If it comes back after 5 minutes, just get rid of it. And how are you guys? That's the real question. It's Trump trial, Trump jury day. We're underway. The jury's there. Let me get this closed. Yeah, we're getting there. We could have I'm predicting, and I have this is an uneducated guess. I predict we will have a ruling tomorrow. That's my guess. What do you guys think? Thank you everybody for getting those likes up and for all the shares. Shut up, don't call me hat boy. I do want to cover one other thing, just from yesterday. Well, I'll just be honest about it while we're here. Yesterday's live ended horrifically with somebody who said horrific things to Felice. It was shocking to everybody, including myself and Felice. And let me just say this, that we looked into that account. The person, the profile picture now has been changed, but the profile picture that was being used was the profile picture of a real person. We know who that real person is, and I've heard the voice. Everybody know, but I'd still highly recommend. What is this? I would still highly recommend blocking Nathan from your lives. Felice's account doesn't want to load. Do you guys see Felice? Hey, down to earth mail. I like that. No, you guys don't see Felice? Felice, let me drop you and try and come up again. I don't know what's going on. By the way, but Discord telling me I got catfished again with Nathan, so that was nice. I froze at the end of that. Yeah, the update is that person is using someone else's picture for their profile. And so that person is absolutely a coward. Their profile picture now is like a picture of Trump. I'm not going to get catfished by Trump. I can tell you that. But I maybe possibly got catfished yesterday. Yeah, it's wild. And look, frankly, I lost a little faith in humanity in this, and I gained a little faith in humanity. There were people that were willing to help out. And then there were people who, even though that's not what Nate said, and that wasn't Nate, and Nate doesn't condone that, people weren't condoning what that Nate did, even though he's very. Let's try that, Felice. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's lovely to have you this morning. How many miles did we walk today so far?
I think at least like 6. I actually didn't check my steps this morning, which is good for me. I've become a little obsessed. But like 6 miles. It's so nice, like feeling like the only person in the world, like everyone else has gotten raptured really early in the morning. Yes, I'm still alive and feeling good. I just thought about it. I briefly just like wanted to, since there's no one in here now, would probably be the best time to do it. Just address like what happened at the end of the live. Like, I think that what's triggering for me when someone calls me those types of names is it just takes me back. Like, I understand now that I'm not in any danger and like words don't hurt me, but it just puts me back in a place where I was helpless, as a child, and I was, I was being hurt. So, like, I think that's, but I'm here because I was thinking about taking the day off and just relaxing. But then sometimes I think it's just best for me to work through it. You're just talking to yourself. Nobody can hear you.
I was just being misogynistic, so that was probably good. Okay. I said, that's right. You have a contract, so you show up. You don't get to have feelings or emotions. It's not exactly an option around here.
Look, and it's such an important day for the trial and stuff. Like, I don't want to miss any of that. We have plenty of things to talk about. Plenty.
Yes, we do. And it's going to be, look, we're going to talk about the Trump trial, the Trump jury. We're gonna do our very, very best just to go over like again, we're not lawyers, and you know what, we don't even pretend to be lawyers. We didn't build ourselves up as lawyers and get exposed. We're not lawyers. And so we're gonna give you the best content we think we found. And just remember, these are guesses. You never know. That's the crazy thing with the jury. You never know what they're gonna come back with. But Felice spent a lot of time, and I spent a lot of time riding her coattails, trying to get some expert opinions on what the jury can come back with, how a conviction
Well,
can be
what,
had. Yeah.
well, but what are you saying? We'll be talking about that a little less, like, because right now, or it's finished now, I
What are you
assume.
saying?
But
Shut
the
up.
judge's charge, right? Like that's what I was listening to a bit of it up until probably about 20 minutes ago, but that's what was going on this morning. So like the judge's charge, and he took them through every count and all of that, and like how you can charge, what you need to look at, all of that. Just it either is just finishing, or it or was finished just a short time ago, and we'll probably go over that tomorrow. But what happened yesterday, and in the words
That's
of
what I
Lawrence,
said. We
in
said
the
the same
words
thing.
exactly, and in the words of, we're always on the same page, and in the I'm just here to be a side hoe. And in the words of Lawrence O'Donnell, like if you the most, if you can be at one day of the trial, that should be the summation. Yesterday was the summation. And so that's what we'll be talking about, right? Each side essentially summing up, oh, and it was a long day, right? It was the longest day of trial ever. I think Todd Blanche was about 3.5 hours, and Steinglass was about like just under five, like probably 4 hours, like 40 minutes or 45
Yeah.
minutes or something of that nature. So yeah, the jury had a full day of recaps, and we're gonna go over that. I was thinking about the
Plus,
order. Oh, I need to add my
that's a
backup,
full day in the
and if you would
refrigerator
mute it.
too. Just remember that.
What?
Remember that
What
we
in the
are
refer?
persecuting Don, and this old Donnie. We put him in a refrigerator for a courtroom. It's an ice box in there. So just remember that all of these people probably now have frostbite
I don't know.
after
I've
sitting in
listened to so many
that
people
room.
that have been in that courtroom say it's not cold and they don't know what he's talking about. Like he's in a suit. But like but I do think like just because of stress and stuff, like I've lost a lot of weight lately. I feel cold all the time. Like I'm just saying Trump has lost a lot of weight, and and sometimes when you lose you know what I mean? I wonder if that's like made his body temperature sort of shift and feel differently, cuz he is, I think watching old videos recently of Trump has really made me realize like how thin he truly, yeah, maybe he is
Yeah.
on Ozempic. I
Yeah.
don't know that, but it could just be stress and moving around a lot. Whatever it is, the man is thin, right? Compared to how he used to be in
Yeah.
2016.
I can tell
He
you, I get a little colder when my ADHD medication kicks in,
that Oh yeah, that's true. When I
and
used to have ADHD, like, that's
and
definitely true.
also it's important to remember he's like he's reptile, half reptile, and those are cold blooded. So
He does need
maybe
the sun in order to
yeah. There's
heat
no sun in the
himself. That's a
courtroom.
good point. I
Maybe if
didn't
they gave
think
him
of
like a
that.
heating lamp or something he could just. I used to do that with my lizards.
Will you remind everyone to tap the screen? Thank you, Jen.
Tap the screen, everyone. They're doing great, by the way. Look at it. We're at 34K already.
Okay, well,
They're
just can you
protecting
go
the
through
live
our
today.
spiel, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, you wanted the whole thing. All
I
right,
want,
everybody.
yes, I would like you to do.
Let's tap that screen. Share it with your favorite or least favorite Republican. Above Felice's head is our Cash App and our Venmo. It's also up there. If you want to not be able to read it quite as well and have it in small letters, it's up there as well. The phone, I don't know why it's not charged. It's sitting on a wireless charger and was all night. So I'll figure that out. And if you want to watch on YouTube, we're also live on YouTube right now. You can catch there. You can also catch the replays there. And did I waste enough time, Felice?
No, but okay, guys, please copy the live. We are taking up. Could you do the whole
I
thing
did do
actually?
that. I
Like,
said you share the live with your favorite or
we
least
are
favorite
taking
Republican.
opposition. If anyone would like to request, we do rely on your donations. That's how we keep our show going. We do appreciate them. This is Cash App and Venmo. If you have anything you would like to say to us, questions, comments, concerns, comments, or questions for anyone we're debating, you can write them in a comment and with a donation to us, and we will periodically, as long as Jay's phone charges, we will read them out loud periodically.
I did. I said 76-ish% of what you said. I was close.
No, hey, then I stand corrected. Good job. I'm just
Thank you. C's
reinforcing
get
it.
degrees, Felice. C's get
No,
degrees.
I know. I can't, I've got to let you fly and do your own thing if I ever expect you to stand on your own. You're
Thank you
doing
for
a
letting me
great
grow. I
job.
appreciate that.
You're doing an amazing job. Well,
Thank you.
I'm the brains, you're the looks. I should have said that to Nathan yesterday.
He wouldn't have believed that.
I think so. Okay, so I think what I want to do here, I don't want to like switch up, but I feel like I just need to show everyone something. And while people trickle in, maybe this is best. Do you mind if I just play this thing I was telling you about real quick?
Not one
The
bit.
Trevian Kutti thing, because it's going to blow your mind. I was listening
Ready.
to it again, and no one really knows about this. Have you guys heard about? Okay, Trevian Kutti. She is the defendant in the Georgia RICO case that harassed Ruby Freeman with Harrison Floyd. Do you guys remember who she is? And she's basically been sort of on the MAGA circuit ever since, like, kind of like, go Trump, like, I'm on Trump's side. Okay, this is crazy, and no one's really heard about this, which is probably the craziest part of the whole thing. I heard, and just to give a shout out to Union Gang, if you go to his live, I think his other one is U.S. Army Overlord. I was in, yes, someone heard that it was on X. So this, Twitter Spaces. It feels weird saying X Spaces. It doesn't even sound right.
That
But
sounds
they
like a group of people like meeting together that like
do
all are
something
divorced.
weird.
No, they're
Yeah.
just all divorced. Like,
Oh, X Spaces. Yeah,
yeah,
it
we're
definitely
going to
sounds
X
strange.
Spaces. Yeah.
So yeah,
There's
this was a
daycare
Twitter
there.
Spaces.
It's a nice place. It's a nice
Now,
place.
you gotta know, and actually, I think I probably still, oh, it might be up on my other phone. I was reading, like, just refreshing my mind. First of all, do you guys know who Angela Stanton King is? Like, she's very well connected in Atlanta to, like the Herman Cain. She's a Republican conspiracy theorist slash like Q type person, says a lot of crazy things. She went to jail for like defrauding people. Then she ran in the
Wait, wasn't she a real housewife?
Angela Stanton. No.
Is that not
Don't
her?
try to test my Real Housewife knowledge. I
Is
know
it? Wasn't
everything
there?
about pointless reality TV. No, she was not a Real Housewife. Like, I've seen every episode of The Real Housewives of
All right.
Atlanta, and
Why did I
that's
think
sad.
that?
But
All
that
right.
is that's how I calm down. Yeah, so she, like, her family, her godmother, I think, and I think she says this in the video or in the recording we're going to listen to, has connections to Herman Cain. But what she's doing, so keep in mind, this is a conspiracy. Will you look her up real quick, Angela Stan King, just
Yeah.
on like
I'm
Wikipedia?
pulling it up. Turns out
It's
not a real housewife. I
it says
apologize.
like what she went to jail for. Like, it might have had to do with election crimes or
Uh,
something.
She was convicted on a federal conspiracy charge for her role in a car theft ring and
Oh.
served 2 years in prison.
Okay, that's worse. That's okay.
She
There you
gave
go.
birth to her daughter while in prison
Yeah, it's wild. But
and then was
again,
pardoned by Trump.
yeah, she was pardoned by Trump because, again, her family in Atlanta, they're black
Wait,
conservatives.
hold on, wait a sec.
Y-
Holy shit!
I know this is crazy. Wait till you have no idea what you're about to hear.
You have no idea what you're about to hear. Everybody, listen the fuck up. After her release from prison, Stanton King became an author under the name Angela Stanton and a reality TV show star. She wrote and edited a number of independently published books, one of which led to a legal dispute with Real Housewives of
Oh, I
Atlanta
know.
star.
Yeah.
So I was close.
Oh, no, so let me tell you, I do know about this. So she credits herself, and I just want to say she credits herself. Anyone that knows anything about the Real Housewife franchise, I think Andy Cohen would beg to differ.
I don't
But
know who that is. Shout out Andy Cohen.
Andy Cohen's the king of Bravo. Like he started the Real Housewives franchise. He's a very, very high-ranking person in television. He controls all the programming for the Bravo network under NBC Universal. Anyways, and he's hilarious. He has a late night talk show on Bravo. Also, you would think he's really funny. You would like him. But anyways, so this is, I do know
He was
who
on
Angela.
From the Bottom Up.
I
on
know
BET.
the Real Housewives story. So let me tell
Whatever
you,
that is.
though, if you know anything about the Real Housewives franchise, it started in the OC in Orange County, and when Angela Stanton King saw that show, she was like, oh, this is a great idea. She copyrighted like it wasn't named The Real Housewives of Atlanta, but a different show, like set it up, and then they used the bones essentially of that show when they created the Real Housewives of Atlanta franchise. So she has like what she got herself in that negotiation. She basically just like copyrighted and trademarked something, and then she used like an entertainment lawyer to negotiate an executive producer credit. So she has an executive producer credit on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, or not, maybe not an EP, maybe just a producer credit on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. But if you ask Angela King about it, she will say that she started the franchise, which is not necessarily true because it started at the OC, and then they just looked for other production companies who like had the means to essentially build it out. But anyways, so again, let's focus on her being crazy though. Like, she was in a car theft ring, went to jail 2 years, was pardoned by Trump. Then she ran in 2020 in the 4th district, I believe, is that right, of Georgia?
Yeah, I think so.
And that is how, so that's when she met Trevian Kutti, who I guess was her campaign manager for like a couple days, and then Angela Stanton like fired her. But go ahead.
Also, currently supporting RFK Jr.
Yeah. Oh no, listen, when I say she's cute, like crazy conspiracy theorist person.
And has a trans child and will not recognize their trans child.
This is not a good person. Like, yes, I'm glad we're going over this. I'm glad because you're about to hear something so crazy that probably will be used as evidence in the Georgia RICO case. So, like, it is important to know that this woman is out of her mind, okay? And has done a lot of things, has a criminal record, apparently was in a car theft ring. And again, she met Trevian Kutti. I guess Trevian Kutti was like her campaign manager for a couple days. Then she fired her. Angela Stanton's family has ties to Herman Cain and those African-American conservatives. That's how she has gotten around Trump. I guess there's photos, and she basically says the only photos of Trevian Kutti around Trump are basically because of my family, my godmother's connections, like to Herman Cain. Like Trevian Kutti never has met Trump and has no relationship with him, which is what Trump said. If you remember when the Georgia RICO case indictment came out, Trump was like, I don't know some of these people. Like, do you remember? He was like talking about Harrison Floyd and Trevian Kutti and like, I don't know these people. Like, that was his comment. Like, and Harrison Floyd sat in jail for weeks, and Angela Stanton is basically on this Twitter Spaces with Trevian Kutti screaming at her, saying, "Tell the truth, Trevian. You called me up first and asked me to go with you to Atlanta and force Ruby Freeman to admit to election fraud." Like, this is the craziest thing you're ever going to hear in your life.
Can we just point out that, like, this whole thing with Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, the Republican thought process was, hey, if we send another black person there, they'll just listen. They'll just listen. Like, that's what they kept trying to do. We'll send a black person and they'll listen.
But so again, Angela Stanton is, we just went through her criminal history, her conspiracy theory history, or, this is not a good person. Should she be trusted? Maybe, probably not. But obviously, again, criminals hang out with criminals. That's how these two know each other. You can take it for what it is. But Angela Stanton is basically saying, Trevian, tell the truth. This was an idea you cooked up to try to gain like clout in MAGA. Like, no one told you to do this. You called me up and asked me to do this dumb shit, and I said no. And then you called Harrison Floyd, who she says they only knew Harrison Floyd because he was helping consult on Angela's campaign. That's how Trevian met him in DC. And she called up Harrison Floyd, and Harrison Floyd agreed to do the dumb shit. Anyways, this is going.
He has a habit of that.
This will, like when we probably need a little pick me up before we get into the summations of the trial, and this is going to make you laugh and smile. I promise. So again, this is Trevian Kutti and Angela Stanton King basically confronting each other on Twitter Spaces and ruining each other's lives.
Go ahead, Angie.
She asked me to contact Ruby Freeman because I was the one running in the election, and to ask Ruby Freeman to admit to election fraud. I told her, hell no, she was out of her fucking mind. Never talk to her again. When I didn't do it, she contacted Harrison Floyd, convinced Harrison Floyd to come down here to Fulton County. These two put together whatever it was they were trying to do to get Ruby Freeman to admit to election fraud and got themselves indicted. Trump knew nothing about this. Trump didn't ask them to contact Ruby Freeman, and both of them make Trump look bad in this case because Trump was not aware of this game that she was playing to try to get some clout. She never had any connection to Trump whatsoever. Any pictures you see of her inside of a private jet with Herman McCain or around any of the Trump family was because she was with me and my godmother. She has absolutely no access to President Trump, and it is wrong for her to sit up here and try to make it seem as if...
Okay, since more people are joining, again, I'm just going to say it, I'll say it a couple more times. This is Trevian Kutti, who is a defendant in the Georgia RICO case. Talking is Angela Stanton, who's basically, Trevian Kutti is on this Twitter Spaces, and she's basically like calling Trevian Kutti out and being like, you called me up and tried to make me do this. She's confronting her with the real, what Angela Stanton says is the real story, that Trevian Kutti made this up and then made Harrison Floyd catch a case, basically. This is crazy shit.
Just for a message from Cindy this morning: for you both have beautiful hearts and brains. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kind.
And got themselves indicted. Trump knew nothing about this. Trump didn't ask them to contact Ruby Freeman, and both of them make Trump look bad in this case because Trump was not aware of this game that she was playing to try to get some clout. She never had any connection to Trump whatsoever. Any pictures you see of her inside of a private jet with Herman McCain or around any of the Trump family was because she was with me and my godmother. She has absolutely no access to President Trump, and it is wrong for her to sit up here and try to make it seem as if she's a part of his team when this man is sitting up here indicted on some shit that he had absolutely nothing to do with. So what she's charged with and what Harrison is charged with have nothing at all to do with Trump. I can tell you that's on everything.
So, Angela,
this is Trevian.
I would love for you to go and testify to all of that with Fanny. Go right ahead and do that. So I'll put you in jail.
You can't put me in jail, baby. Who told you to contact Ruby Freeman?
Why would I talk to you about that?
You did that. You called me and asked me to do it. You came up with the idea because you wanted it to be a publicity stunt.
You're so fucking...
Nobody has to lie on you, baby.
Good luck to you. Good luck to you, Angela.
I told you not to do it. I told you it was dumb. You went and did it. You don't have any connection.
Angela, you're the one who was...
You have no connection to President Trump. He knows nothing about you and Harrison putting together this plot to try to gain some clout. And you got Harrison fucked up because Harrison didn't even have nothing to do with it. You convinced Harrison to do it when I told you no.
Real quick, can you pause it real quick?
Are you on drugs?
I've
Are
never
you
been
on
on drugs, Trevian Kutti.
See how she calls out her real name, Trevian Kutti, full name. She's like, I'm calling you out. I love this. I could not get enough.
A couple people, you're rolling in early. This isn't a recorded phone call. This is a public Twitter space, correct? This is just
this
happening
is Twitter Spaces.
Twitter.
They showed Angela Stanton basically was gonna call out Trevian Kutti. Angela Stanton's. We went through this. Angela Stanton is a crazy person who was in a carjacking ring. She was in jail for 2 years. Her family are black conservatives in Atlanta who are well connected politically, particularly her godmother. So she got out of jail after 2 years. Then she ran for Congress in 2020. Yes, she lost to a Democrat in that district. But she's a crazy conspiracy theory, MAGA, QAnon, every crazy conspiracy theory you can imagine, was friends with Trevian Kutti. Apparently Kutti, because she just pronounced that, Trevian Kutti was her friend, and then made her campaign manager, but fired her. But basically, Angela Stanton is calling out Trevian Kutti in a Twitter Spaces and saying, tell the truth, Trevian. No one told you to do this. You made this up to try to get clout in MAGA, and you called me and asked me to do it. However, this is just the most messy thing to have happened. Why would you stay? You know what I mean? Hang up, Trevian. You.
Do you know who she ran against? I didn't know. I had forgotten this. Do you know who? John Lewis.
Oh, that's not what I read earlier.
Yeah, that's who she ran against in 2020. Yeah, Georgia's 5th congressional district.
I thought it was Georgia's 4th.
5th.
Are you sure?
I mean, unless this is wrong.
Angela Stanton.
It says Stanton King officially launched a campaign to challenge incumbent Rep. John Lewis for Georgia's 5th congressional district in the 2020 House of Reps.
That's good. Okay, so 5th district.
But yeah, she was running against John Lewis, the most beloved human in Congress, one of the very few universally beloved people. And I'm gonna go back and see if did they ever debate? That'd have been amazing.
No. Sorry, I swear I just need to check. Are you on Wikipedia?
Yes.
Do you ever have those moments where you just think you're going crazy?
Every single day.
She was the Republican. She was the Republican candidate for Georgia's 5th congressional district in the 2020 election, losing to Democrat Nikema Williams. See, I'm not crazy. In the first paragraph, that's what, because I was I know it said.
Wait, was that Wikipedia? Where were you?
Yeah, the first paragraph of Wikipedia, the second to last sentence.
But then go to politics.
Okay, yeah. It says Nikema
was replaced
that's right,
on
the ballot.
That's the year he passed away.
Yeah,
and he was replaced by
on the ballot.
Nikema Williams. That's right. That's right. He passed away during that cycle.
Yeah, so it's Nikema Williams. Okay. I thought I was going crazy. I was having one of those. What is that called on the internet where you think you remember something and it's wrong or whatever? It's some type of effect.
Life.
No, Mandela effect or I think.
Yeah. I just call it what.
Anyways, back to this big shit show. This is really bad for the Georgia case and Trevian Kutti.
You're the one who was.
You have no connection to
actually
President
know what
Trump.
you're talking about.
He knows nothing about you and Harrison putting together this plot to try to gain some clout. And you got Harrison fucked up. Because Harrison didn't even have nothing to do with it. You convinced Harrison to do it when I told you no.
Angela, are you on drugs?
I've never been on drugs, Trevian Kutti.
Okay, well.
I've never been. You were never my campaign manager. That's another lie.
Okay, so I have to check.
You and Kanye West. Kanye West said he does not know you.
She said Kanye West said he does not know you. Remember, because she's claiming to be Kanye's publicist.
That's devastating.
You were fired. You were never the campaign manager.
You couldn't handle where I was trying to take you. You couldn't handle
where I
was trying to help you. You were too ghetto.
She was trying to take you to jail. Is where she was trying to take you. Where she's going.
Yeah, just. Oh.
What?
Yeah, nobody checks these things, and I would just say that there are some other people that are out in the TikTok streets that also claim to have run campaigns and who currently run campaigns They also lie too. People lie about this shit all the time, but it's not hard to figure out. You can just Google this. She wasn't her campaign manager. It's just not true.
Well, she was. I mean, she's mentioned in the campaign finance records. Like, that's what they're arguing about. She was fired, like, basically, like, I think, like, a week or something.
Yeah.
You know what like, it was very short-lived.
They basically helped her fill out the paperwork.
Yeah, is what Angela Stanton's saying. Is like, I figured out you're a weirdo and I fired you.
Nothing about you and Harrison putting together this plot to try to gain some copy. You got Harrison fucked up. Because Harrison didn't even have nothing to do with it. You convinced Harrison to do it when I told you no.
Angela, are you on drugs?
I've never been on drugs, Trevian Kutti.
Okay, well...
You were never my campaign manager. That's another lie.
Okay, so I have to check
you and Kanye West. Kanye West said he does not know you.
Campaign finance
records. I fired
check your campaign finance
you. You
records.
were fired.
You
were never the campaign manager.
Angela, you couldn't handle where I was trying to take you. You couldn't handle where I was trying to take you. I was trying to help you. You were too ghetto to figure it out.
Because I knew you was full of shit.
You were too ghetto to figure that out.
No, Angela, you were just to pick up the phone and call Ruby Freeman and try to get her to admit some fucking
How long did it take you to come? Find the phone records. Find the phone records. Find the phone records. Find the phone records, Angela. Find the phone records. No, find them.
Did you hear what she said?
Find that.
I don't have to find them. The DA's gonna find them. That's hilarious. You guys, this is just mods and other people in the chat, since we're all smart and very helpful. As people come in and repeatedly ask who is talking, could you guys do us a favor so we don't have to keep pausing and explain it? So if someone asks who's arguing, just respond to them and let them know. Again, this is Trevian Kutti. She is one of the indicted people in the Georgia RICO case, right? And Angela Stanton, who Trevian Kutti worked on Angela Stanton's campaign. Angela Stanton's basically calling Trevian Kutti out and was like, you did this to try to get clout in MAGA. You called me and tried to get me to call Ruby Freeman, like, tell the truth. This is on Twitter Spaces. She's confronting her. This is last week on Twitter Spaces.
And for those that are asking, no relation that we know of to Kid Kutti.
Well, I don't know how to pin things, so someone can pin it like that.
I don't
knows
either.
How. I have a lot of things going on, and I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry.
But yeah, no relation to Kid Kutti there. It's different spelling. Good question.
You did that. Trump didn't tell you to do that. That was all you.
Angela, when did I ever call you? When did I ever call you? When did I ever call you? The morning before you did the dumb shit and conviction.
Remember what Trump said about Harrison Floyd and Trevian Kutti? He's like, I don't know these people. Like, that was what he said.
It's more about what he didn't say. Yeah, I don't know who the
That's why, and Harrison Floyd sat in jail for weeks because nobody knew what he was doing.
Harrison Floyd to do it. You asked me to fuck him.
This is one of the reasons, though, that they brought RICO charges, because there are going to be like these ancillary actions that Trump didn't necessarily know. But that's the whole point of RICO. It's like a criminal conspiracy. It's a criminal organization. So those crimes get charged as one, right? Like they all get encompassed in RICO. Otherwise, you would have mob bosses that would be like, well, I wasn't there. I didn't tell. Do you have any record of me telling them to do exactly that? That's the whole point of RICO, is that you can take all these ancillary things and you build a case out of it.
You are such a
do it, and I told you was dumb as fuck, and that's why you charged down. And that's why Harrison sat in jail so long.
How long did it take? How long did it take you to come up with?
I don't know how long it took you to come up with. I know I told you was dumb as hell when you called me and asked me.
We never even talked about that shit. We never even talked about it.
Oh yes, we did. Oh yes, we did.
The only time we talked to you about anything,
who is we? You were the one that was. You were the PR on the campaign. This was your idea. This was a publicity.
First of all, you're lying.
This was a publicity stunt that you thought of.
Okay.
That you contacted me and asked me to do, and I told you hell no, and you called Harrison Floyd.
This is one time.
Angela, why didn't you tell her no?
Disappointed in you.
Cause the shit was dumb as fuck.
We never even talked about it. Let me tell Angela. I've already told them. I've already told them.
You did not have
permission
from
why. I've already told them why.
You ain't told them
already
shit.
told them
You told them
why.
a lie.
You weren't on the
phone.
No, I didn't.
A lie.
No, I didn't. Angela, I wouldn't lie.
You
I've
lying
never
now.
lied to you. And you.
Guys, again, like, just think of it. Like, this doesn't prove or deny anything. I think the point is this is just messy as fuck. Like, this is what happens in RICO, right? Like, they're eating each other alive. Like, they're realizing, like, this shit is real. Like, I'm in trouble. And then this is what happens. Like, this is the point. This is what they're cracking under the pressure.
This whole thing.
You know that.
Oh, sorry. No,
What?
keep playing it. Keep playing it. You're good.
You ain't lying. You lied about your connection to Kanye West. You lying about
Actually, I
your
didn't.
connection to President Trump. You lying about not calling me and asking
First
me
of all,
to set up Robbie Freeman.
when have you ever heard me say, just for the sake of our case, when have you ever heard me say I've ever had a relationship with President Trump? When have you ever heard me say that?
Who told
You've
you?
never. You're
It don't
lying.
matter if you
You're
said
lying.
it. I'm saying it.
You're
I'm
lying.
letting
Yeah,
the world know
Yeah,
that
like
Trump
you
has
saying all
nothing
this
to
other
do with
bullshit.
your
Like you
bullshit.
saying all this
I'm
other
letting the
bullshit.
world know
Angela.
that President Trump has
Okay.
nothing to do with your bullshit. This was your
He has nothing to
publicity
do
stunt.
with you.
This was
He
your
has nothing. It was a publicity
Wow.
stunt.
This was your
Wow, this is-
publicity stunt, and now President Trump is being blamed because you wanted to do some stupid shit and catch the fucking clout.
Yeah.
You've been holding this all this time.
Let me get in here. So, Kutti, it is at
Who's
least
this?
reported that, at least the way it looks in the media, that Trump.
It seems like Re-Ups. He's the co-host. It's just two African Americans. It's their podcast. I don't know, like,
Okay.
what
I'll figure out who
it's.
they are.
You
How do
can look
spell
at
it?
the. It's in the.
Oh, that's right. I'll find it.
It's in the outline.
And his team created this extortion, if you will. So we're hearing from Angela. This is the first time I think the public is hearing this. That Trump actually had nothing to do with that call with Ruby and trying to pressure her to change her statement around.
Look,
He had nothing to do with it, and he knew nothing about it.
It's
He had nothing to do with it. He knew nothing about
for
it.
the whole
This was
world.
Trevian
It's best
publicity
for the
stunt.
whole.
Trump found out
You
about
a
the shit
fucking
when he
liar,
saw their
Angela.
ass indicted with him. He trying to figure out why the fuck is Trevian and Harrison Floyd on the case with him. He didn't even know what the fuck they
He
did.
don't even know why he's on the
He
case.
know why he on the case, but he don't know why the fuck
No,
y'all
he
called
doesn't.
Ruby
No, he
Freeman
doesn't.
and tried to get her to admit to election fraud.
Find the phone records,
Yeah, hold
Angela,
on,
from when I
hold
talked
on.
to
The
you.
DA
Find the
applied,
phone
I
records,
ain't gotta
Angela.
prove nothing.
And
You know the truth.
look,
You know the truth.
I do know the
You
truth.
the
That's
truth,
why
and
you
you
don't
know
try
why
to
he was
shit. You're
fired.
just angry.
This is you,
You're
not
just
Trump.
no,
This is
Angela.
you.
You were too ghetto to work
Your
together.
ass
You know
got
what I'm saying?
fired.
It was
bitch.
okay.
You wouldn't know whether I was
And-
ghetto or not. You got
I'm not
fired
a
because you're a
I'm not a
liar.
bitch. I'm not
You
a
got
bitch.
fired
I'm not
because
a
you're a
bitch.
liar.
I just didn't want to.
You
I
lied
just
about
didn't want to
Kanye.
connect you
You
to
lied
Kanye.
about
No,
Trump.
you
You
got mad
lied
because I
about
didn't
me.
invite you
You
when I
lied
was in
about
town.
being my
You got mad.
campaign manager. You were never my campaign
Angela,
manager.
look at your
I
campaign
wouldn't give a
finance
fuck
records.
what it
Look
said.
at
You
them.
were
Look-
never my
Because you
campaign
lying.
manager. How
You
long was
sound
you
like
on
an
the campaign
angry,
before you got
angry
fired?
woman. However
How long
long
was you on
through the
we talking
primaries,
about the
through
FTC
the
record?
primaries,
How long was
through
you
the
on the
primaries,
campaign before you got fired?
through the
30
primaries,
fucking
through
days.
the primaries.
30 days.
Angela, stop
30
lying.
days.
Stop
You
lying,
got
Angela.
fired
Angela.
immediately. Because
Angela,
you're out.
you
Because you're up.
Because you're not.
No,
Is that
you
like a
the traitor.
psyop? Is that what she's saying?
You're the traitor. You're the
You
Like a
traitor.
can't
plan?
help yourself.
You gotta lie about this case. You can't even help yourself. When you know you did that,
I'm lying
you
about the
originate
case.
that, and whatever
I'm lying
you
about
get,
the
you
case.
fucking deserve, because
Oh
it didn't
my
have
God.
shit to do with Trump.
I'll be working in. I'll be fine.
It
Hey,
had
Kutti,
nothing
so
to do
I
with
do want
She was about to say I'm going to be
this
working in the
question, right?
administration.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
and again, I'm not here to play prosecutor with you, right? But this is new news that we're hearing.
It's not new. It's
Well, no,
not.
it's new. No, I think you doubled down on it. That Trump did not know about this whole call with Ruby. Like, this is not something they asked y'all to do.
What I will tell you is, for the case that I have going, I'll let everybody know that I don't have a relationship with Donald Trump.
She don't have a relationship with nobody on his campaign. The only person she talked to was Harrison Floyd when she tricked him and got him cased up, because I wouldn't do
And
it.
you
Yeah,
got
yeah,
my
yeah,
eyes.
yeah, yeah.
Like, she like
Hold on. So let me ask you this, anybody?
MAGA's
Did you
eating
call
each
here
other
before
alive.
to get involved
It's a
with that movie
picnic.
stuff? Before that, someone get involved, because it sounds like before that he knew nothing about it, and that there was some sort of, from what we're hearing, that there was a call where he was solicited for some help.
She met Harrison through me. We went to D.C. because Harrison was giving us advice on my campaign. That's how she met Harrison. She called me first.
Well,
I told
like
her
you might be a witness to this case.
Listen,
Yeah, stop talking and call the DA.
She knew Harrison through me. She called me and asked me to contact Ruby Freeman. I told her hell no. She called Harrison and got Harrison caught up. Harrison sat in jail for almost 3 weeks, complaining because no Republicans or nobody will raise money to get him out of jail.
Well,
you know why? Because nobody knew about this stunt that she pulled.
Well, can we pause
Harrison
that
is
real
caught up
quick?
because of her, not because of Trump.
Yeah, he was in jail for 3 weeks. Like, they don't get to sugarcoat that part because he tried to fight the police and he threatened the police. That's why Harrison Floyd wasn't just like, didn't go in, get the mugshot and leave. Like, when they got Harrison Floyd, he tried to fight. That's why he was in jail.
Well, yeah, and it's more complicated. Like, also, if you weren't here for the beginning, like, Angela Stanton's also a liar who's been in prison for a couple of years. She was part of a carjacking ring in Atlanta. Like, none of these people can necessarily fully be believed, but it's just very interesting what the pressure, right? Like, that's the point of RICO, to name a bunch of people and then watch the pressure slowly have them all crack. Like, that's what's going on. But anyways, there's just one more minute. Like, there's longer recordings of this, I think, but this is like I just thought you guys would like this.
Okay, but ACAB,
So would
fair
you
enough.
be testifying
Fair
in
enough.
Harrison's defense?
It's nothing.
So they listen. This part is so funny. Here, we'll listen to I'm gonna rewind a little. This is funny because
Hey,
we
Ben.
all need to smile, right, before we talk about the trial.
Listen, she called. Listen, she knew Harrison through me. She called me and asked me to contact Ruby Freeman. I told her hell no. She called Harrison and got Harrison caught up. Harrison sat in jail for almost 3 weeks, complaining because no Republicans or nobody will raise money to get him out of jail. You know why? Because nobody knew about this stunt that she pulled. Harrison is caught up because of her, not because of Trump.
Well, and Trump.
I do
So
believe
would you
Rudy
be
knew.
testifying in Harrison's defense?
It's nothing to defend. Because
Listen.
he should have knew better. When she called me, I knew better. Like, he should have been smart enough not to listen to her and not get involved. It's nothing for me to defend.
Facts.
Somebody got to have good sense around here. I
Preach.
knew not to get involved. Trump and his team called me personally and asked me if I would join the election fraud lawsuit, and I told them no. I told them no because, for one, I live in Georgia.
She's
This
saying
is
too much
I gotta
now.
deal with these people. Y'all gone in New York, Mar-a-Lago, whatever. Y'all not gonna provide no support for me. Y'all not gonna help me. Hell no, I'm not getting involved. That's why I'm free.
That's
that
why
phone-
I'm free.
Not on nothing.
If that phone call hasn't been
I ran
subpoenaed, it
in
will.
the election. If it was any way for them to get me caught up, you know I would be indicted as well.
Anyways, yeah, there you have it. That's the tea.
Yeah.
That was the RICO case is RICOing. It's driving them all insane, and now they're all confessing to things on Twitter Spaces. I'd say
Which
it's
some-
working.
Twitter Spaces is like TikTok Live without the rules. It's a pretty wild place, to be honest. It can be a fun place to watch. I'm glad you found that. How did you come across that?
I told
How did
you already, Jay.
I
So
can't
I want
remember.
you to think and prove to me you listen when I tell you things more than once.
You've told me it twice this morning on
yeah.
the show and before that. Hold on, let me think about it. I know you told me.
You
I know
can
where I
do
was when you
it.
told me.
No, it's fine. I know you know. I got it from U.S. Army Overlord or Union Gang.
That's right.
If you
Yeah.
listen to his lives, I was in his live. He turned 50 on Saturday. Happy birthday to him. And yeah, he had this, and he said because he hates Twitter. He's like, I had to rejoin Twitter to get this video or to get this recording, and it's just like when you hear that, it just makes you smile. Like you cannot listen to that. Like if you're in a bad mood, it's just hilarious. Yeah, I love Union Gang. He's awesome.
Well, there we go. So that's something we have to look forward to this hopefully this summer, that we get to go over those RICO charges. That'll be fun.
Yeah, So here's what I want to do as it relates to the trial. Like, I think that what we should do is go through the defense. So the defense went first. So go through just quickly, though. I don't want to take a long time. Like, we don't need to do too much talking about it, but I want to go through Ron Filipkowski's version of just, the defense closing, which it's number 3 on the outline. And we'll go through that. We'll see how long that takes. Again, I don't want to take that much time, but I just want everyone to get an idea of the bones of this case and what was presented yesterday. And then there's some great commentary from Rachel Maddow, the former general counsel of the FBI, Andrew Weissman, things like that, that I think will be really good supplementary information to this.
And while Felice is getting that ready, please keep tapping the screen. We're at 120,000 likes. Thank you for that.
Great job, guys.
That's very kind.
Work those fingers.
Work your fingers. Your significant others will appreciate it. And that goes for
one of the
everybody.
Weirdest statements ever on this show.
Keep your fingers in good shape. You never know when you're going to need to use them.
You never know. We're all here for the finger workout.
Over 300 shares. Above Felice's head is the Cash App and the Venmo. We do rely on the generosity of our viewers to pay the bills here.
Jay likes women with strong fingers.
That's correct. I listen. I do my Kegels and I keep it tight down there. So you got
what? Okay. I don't even want to know.
Is that not what you meant? All right,
we're in the weeds.
Sorry about that.
We need to come back to shore. We're too far out.
Anyways, we would love your support if you can support. If not, that's all right too. Just be here, share the live, like the live, engage with the people in the chat, and I'll give it back to the teacher while I go to timeout.
Well, I don't know, Jen, if you want to drop the third screen while we do this article, that's fine, and I'll just request, like you said, and if it looks bad or whatever, because we don't really need it right now. So again, I'm on number 3, defense closing argument in Trump trial, and Ron Filipkowski, again, he's a former lawyer. I believe he's a defense lawyer, and he's basically saying, like, this is not editorialized, like, it's not his opinions, like, he's just trying to give us the bones of what Todd Blanche was saying yesterday. Again, Todd Blanche I think he was about like 3.5 hours, like, in his time. Okay, so here and away we go. So Judge Merchan began the proceedings today by instructing both sides not that this went well or anything, to get into the details of the law or try and explain the law during closings, because that is his job, and to stick to arguing the facts of the case as they apply to the law. Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, predictably began his closing by trashing Michael Cohen is not credible. And Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal's lawyer, Keith Davidson, as someone who was just trying to extort Trump. He then emphasized how old the case was by stating that the encounter with Stormy was 18 years ago, and most of the facts charged occurred 8 years ago, which I actually thought, just so I know, like, he's proving the prosecution's case, right? Yeah, think about that. This encounter was 18 years ago. That goes to the prosecution's argument, right? If Trump cared about protecting his family, he had a decade to do something about this, right? Like, prior. If this was about protecting his family, why did it take until 2 weeks before the election for him to actually care?
Well,
Yes?
yeah, that's just the time that you show that you care. It was happenstance.
That's when he started really caring about his family. Like,
right, yeah.
It just
as the
doesn't
election
make any
was falling
sense.
apart, as the Republicans were meeting at that time, Reince Priebus and prominent Republicans were trying to figure out how to replace Donald Trump. Right? That's what they were deciding, and he was trying to convince them, hey, this I'll be okay, it's just one thing. And then this story would have come out on top of that. Do you think, like, Donald Trump got through the GOP not giving up his seat by the skin of his teeth? You don't think a second story would have ended it? Of course it would have. They were very close to pulling the plug on him.
Oh, for sure. Republicans were calling. And we'll hopefully get to this. Rachel Maddow had tweets, like, she was actually showing, because Todd Blanche had the nerve to insult the the jury and say that the Access Hollywood tape wasn't a big deal. And Rachel's mad. I was like,
Okay.
now
Yeah.
this is things in people's living memory. Now you're just insulting all of our intelligence. Ronna McDaniel herself called for Trump to drop out.
Almost everybody did.
Everybody. And Rachel Maddow basically just showed a bunch of tweets from like high-ranking Republicans that are like, oh, Trump needs to go. Anyways, again, sorry, I digress. We're going to get through this fast. Blanche said that the payments to Cohen were strictly legal fees for legal work and not reimbursements for his payments to Stormy. I just got Steinglass had the most interesting argument to that, though. Like, it's basically like, okay, you can't have it both ways, right? Like, if the one argument is like, hey, this was not a reimbursement, this was income, right? This is legal fees to Michael Cohen. Okay, if you want that to be true, then it can't also be true that he stole from you, right? How does he steal his income, right? Then in the next breath you're saying, oh, he stole $30,000 grossed up at $60,000. Okay, if it was his income, he can't steal his own income. You know what I'm saying? So you can't have it both ways. And they never resolved that issue.
I would love for the chat to stay alive on this too. Like, as we go through this, I think that what we're trying to do is get what the actual case is. But in this instance, and this is something that Republicans keep harping on, but in this instance, the evidence is so contradictory, but the contradictory evidence almost all comes from Trump. Trump's on record calling this a reimbursement. He said it. He said it was a reimbursement. Those are his words. He said it in 2017. He lost a lawsuit where he admitted,
and they entered a tweet. And I have the tweet. Yeah, there's evidence. Like we said, in a civil court case in California, he called the payments reimbursements. That is true, but that wasn't allowed to be entered in the case. But what was allowed was a tweet from back then where he called the payments reimbursement. So the jury saw that again yesterday.
The thing is, like, if you're the jury here, I see a lot of people afraid of a hung jury, and I get it. Like, we're used to Trump getting away with things, but we do have to remember that everything Trump has ever done without the protection of a Republican Congress, he loses. Like, forget, like, we have the two civil cases, we have this case, but remember that every one of these cases had to go through a grand jury first, too, right? So every time Trump has not had the protection of partisans, he loses. And I think that's what they're showing here, is that if this is a jury, truly, that isn't partisan, I don't know how, so far with what we've covered, you're saying, like, yeah, Trump didn't know it was a reimbursement. I think it's pretty clear that, one, he knew it was a reimbursement, and they're doing a good job of laying out, like, yeah, the timing of when you decided to do this was like the most critical timing of your entire election. This was like make or break for you. And a lot of people were saying, get rid of him. This would have buried him.
Okay, now I'm just going to read like two paragraphs. Okay. Blanche said that payments to Cohen were strictly legal fees for legal work and not reimbursements for his payment to Stormy. He argued that the invoices submitted by Cohen proved the payments for legal services, and the payment vouchers at issue were prepared after those invoices were submitted. He said that Trump never saw those invoices while president and did not approve any of the payments, suggesting that CFO Weisselberg made all those arrangements without Trump's knowledge. Oh yeah, Alan Weisselberg made plans to pay someone $420,000. If you believe that, maybe. Trump's bookkeeper testified, right? Madeline Westerhout testified that she always stapled the invoices to each check when they were sent to the White House for Trump to sign. So that kind of, I guess he did see them. The prosecution argued that clearly proves that Trump saw the invoices. Blanche argued that Tarasoff did not specifically remember doing that with these checks, but that it was her general practice to do it with all of them. Blanche argued that the jury can't be certain of that, can't be certain because of that. So again, you see, we're just casting a doubt, right? He's poking holes. He also noted, I think it's helpful to know, and because I heard Ari Melber say this, and I think it's quite intelligent point to make, was that what you're seeing in this defense is the defense for a hung jury, right? He's not going for complete innocence, right? If he was making a defense for Trump's completely innocent, then that's when we would see like an alternate theory. We never saw alternate theories. He did not fix like all of these problems and holes. He's just trying to poke any hole and get to that one juror, right? And get, trying to find that one thing that will make that one juror hold out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. He also noted that Cohen put on the invoices, quote, for services rendered, and claimed this also showed that he was billing for legal work. He said that even if it was true that he paid $420,000 for a minimal amount of legal work, he still admitted doing a few minor things for Trump in 2017. Yeah, it's interesting to note. I learned yesterday, I think it was Lisa Rubin I learned this from. She's one of the MSNBC's court reporters, and she's a lawyer herself, that Michael Cohen spent fewer hours doing legal work for Trump in 2017 than he spent on the stand in this case. If they actually were regular legal billable hours at the right rate, he would have been billed 42,000. Right, Trump's
Nowhere
a penny
close,
pincher,
yeah.
but instead billed 420,000.
And we also know that his pay wasn't set up on billable hours, right? Like he had a salary plus bonuses with the Trump organization. It wasn't. So then like you're saying, like if then Trump took him off of that salary and said, we're just going to pay you billable hours, then it still doesn't make sense. There's not a scenario where that story really makes sense with Michael Cohen's history with Donald Trump.
Yeah. What you're trying to say is true. Like if they're talking about what's normal, Cohen was never paid by a lawyer. He didn't work for or paid as a lawyer. He didn't have he didn't have a contract. He never did legal work. He didn't work for the legal department. He had a salary through Trump Org and reported to Trump directly. Like he was a fixer. So he still admitted to doing a few minor things for Trump in 2017. He also mentioned that Cohen admitted to skimming $30,000 from the Trump Org after Trump stiffed a polling consultant, and Cohen partially reimbursed them out of his pocket. I think two interesting things I learned yesterday about that is that Michael, just so we know about the stealing, that's something that Michael Cohen volunteered. If Michael Cohen didn't confess to that, no one would have ever known. And there's many examples where Michael Cohen could have fibbed or lied and made the prosecution's case a lot easier. And that is one of them. The only reason anyone knows that Michael Cohen didn't pay the full $50,000 to Redfinch is because Michael Cohen admitted it in his book Disloyal. Okay. Blanche said that the prosecution using quotes from Trump's old books about his business practice should make the jury suspicious about their case because that is weak evidence. He said that in the Trump Org accounting, oh my God, this is so, oh my God, this pissed me off.
I was like, there's no way you could read this without your eyes.
The software made me do it. Like, is literally the defense now. There is no defense. Like the
See
defense
if you guys can hear this without rolling your eyes.
The software made me
test.
do it. Is one of the defense's holes.
Beautiful.
He said that in the Trump Org accounting system, Tarasoff entered them as legal expense, which is more proof of what they were for. And to tell you what I'm talking about the software made me do it. His argument is that it's a drop down. And the software made her select legal services because it's the best option. Anyways, which is more proof of what they were for. He also noted that the invoices were paid out of the trust being managed by Junior and Eric since Trump was president. But when they realized that Cohen was Trump's personal attorney, they switched his payments to Trump's personal account after 3 months. Blanche then argued that when Trump signed the checks to Cohen, he was very busy in the White House as president, so may not have read or looked at the checks or invoices before signing them. He said that Trump's assistant in the White House, Westerhout, that's Madeleine Westerhout, testified that he was sometimes presented many checks in a stack to sign, so he may have just quickly went through them without looking at them. Blanche then argued that the prosecution could have called CFO Alan Weisselberg as a witness to corroborate the testimony of other witnesses, but chose not to. He also said the fact that Weisselberg Trump would agree to pay Cohen $420,000 as reimbursement for the $130,000 hush money payment to Stormy was absurd, because there's no way they would pay him triple what he was owed, since Trump paid close attention to his finances. Do you see how all of these points contradict themselves?
Right.
Like, are you noticing that? He just made the point, oh, even despite what the books say, that's why Steinglass was reading titles of the book, because Trump has whole chapters on do not pay, never pay the first invoice. You negotiate down. You have to watch every penny that goes out. Like, that's what he was pointing out in the book. And then Todd Blanche is making the case, well, it was a big stack of checks he never went through. And now he's making the point, nope, Trump pays attention to detail, and he never would have paid 3 times the amount. Which one is it?
One piece of evidence that I think is so compelling that goes along with this is that on the paperwork where it has, like, where it was Weisselberg and Cohen going over the finances, like, and they show that it's doubled, it also says grossed up or gross up. I can't remember if it's grossed or gross. Like, when else would you use
GROSS?
I know what it's supposed to be. I just couldn't remember if they wrote it right. But yeah, grossed up.
Were you making a joke?
No. I'm saying, like, what else could that possibly be? What are you grossing up? Do you gross up what you pay your attorney? Nobody grosses that. That you only are talking about that in terms of reimbursement, right?
Well, again, and if it was income, you don't gross up income, right?
No, it's already grossed up.
It's also Jeff McConney, who's the comptroller, Weisselberg's number 2, testified that he was told to gross it up. Like, that's nothing to do with Michael Cohen. Jeff McConney's own testimony is that that's what he was instructed to essentially do.
So again, for the jury, you have a handwritten note saying gross it up. Then you have the person who was responsible for grossing it up testifying, yeah, I was supposed to gross it up. And then you have all of this other evidence. I know we all think Donald Trump gets away with everything, and we're all expecting the worst. And I think, look, protect your peace. We should all expect a not guilty verdict just so that we don't lose our goddamn minds. But the evidence is overwhelming. Like, I don't see a sensible person on earth who could possibly look at this evidence and be like, no, it was. Even the MAGAs that pretend. Well, they don't even pretend, that think Donald Trump's going to get off. They're not making the argument that he definitely didn't do it. They're making the argument that you can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, like, what reasonable doubt could you have after that evidence? What's the reasonable doubt? Where's the doubt that's reasonable there?
I'll say this, like, Alvin Bragg and his team and Josh Steinglass yesterday in his summation, like, it was very long, but it was thorough, and they left it all in the field. Like, this case is crystal clear. That, unfortunately, does that translate to, a conviction? No. But you know what I mean? Like, just feel good if you want to take solace in the fact that, like, they did it, right? Like, and they did it well. Like, this case could not have been presented any clearer. They left it all on the field. There's nothing they could have said more. Like, Steinglass was very thorough and engaging yesterday. Anyways, I
heard a rumor he dropped the mic on the way out. That's what I heard.
Oh my God.
Spread it.
Now that was a joke. He argued that there was no evidence presented that the extra money being paid to Cohen was to also cover the taxes he would have to pay. He then argued that when Cohen went to the White House in 2017 for the first time in his life, he must have been so in awe of being there that there was no way he would have thought to discuss something so mundane with Trump as reimbursement checks. You took out a secret HELOC loan for like 120,000 or 130,000, like, it's on your mind.
Just because he was trying to buy a job in the White House, which again, substantiate any of that, that's tough.
He then argued that when Cohen contacted the comptroller, Jeffrey McConney, 6 days later, because he couldn't remember the exact monthly amount of his payments, that also showed he must not have discussed that with Trump in his White House meeting. Again, like this, I think a really good way that they described this last night when I was listening to Rachel Maddow was scattershot, right? Like when I say they're going for a hung jury, not for acquittal, right? So he's just throwing out a bunch of buckshot is just spreading out, and they're just trying to get a hit, like just here's some ideas I had. Like, is this resonating with any of you? Like, is this enough for one of you to hold out? Like, is that, you know what I mean? That's what he's literally doing. Just it's like he's trying like a comedy routine out. He also argued that they would not have reported the payment. Wait, hold on. Blanche then made a novel argument that if Trump's comptroller, McConney, Weisselberg, or Trump himself thought that anything they were doing was illegal, oh yeah, this was gold, why would they have preserved all the documents and not destroyed them? So basically, like, hey, if they were really doing a crime, they would have like burned after reading, like they would have.
Yeah, they basically did. Like the documentation that is proving this hasn't been like the actual documentation that they have. Like that has been like that corroborates the story, but that's not the story, right? They just probably didn't think this story was going to get it out at the time. Do you really think Donald Trump was afraid of Michael Cohen flipping on him?
I mean, this is the problem. Like, I want to say exhibits like 35 and 36. I can't remember exactly what the numbers are, but the two papers, the smoking guns of like Weisselberg's handwriting, McConney's handwriting, like those are smoking guns. Like, right. That's their handwriting that's been authenticated. Like McConney says he wrote that, and they weren't destroyed. And the only time he approached it and said anything about the two smoking gun exhibits was this. Oh, well, if they were really criminals, they would have burned it. Like, he had no answer. This is a big hole, like, that he never addressed. Okay, so we've destroyed them. He also argued...
I don't think it's a stretch for most people to believe that Trump's not, like, the brightest. I don't think that would be a stretch.
Well, I found out today, when I was listening to the judge's charge, like, in New York jury instructions, like it specifically says you can use your common sense. Like that's part of the jury instructions. Like use your common sense. Like, does this look like what it looks like? Or is there some other magical explanation that we can pull out of thin air for all this, which Todd Blanche didn't offer, right?
Yeah, I think that's important for a lot of people to recognize that like reasonable doubt doesn't mean just any doubt, right? It's beyond a reasonable doubt, not beyond any doubt. And the judge is explaining that to them. Like, if you don't think this is what it was for, like, is there a different explanation that's reasonable? And if there's not, then I think you have to choose to convict.
True that. Okay. So he also argued that they would not have reported the payments to the IRS to leave another paper trail. No, that was the point, was to cover up, make the paper trail look correct, but whatever. Blanche then shifted gears to argue that the catch and kill scheme, so now we're moving on to like David Pecker and the Inquirer, scheme with AMI and the Inquirer is not illegal because celebrities, here we go again, because celebrities pay tabloids to kill stories all the time. He also argued that every political campaign tries to work the press to run positive stories on their candidate and negative stories on their opponents, so there is nothing unusual or criminal about that. He noted that Pecker testified that the first story he killed for Trump was way back in 1988, long before he entered politics. He then argued that the Inquirer didn't have much influence on elections anyway, and Trump knew that. That's the most, like, don't insult my intelligence. Oh, you mean a meeting of high-powered, rich white males, like a man like basically saying this guy who was the CEO of a magazine, he's trying to say no one reads. It's literally on, at every checkout aisle at the grocery store. You know what I mean? While you're standing there. And also, what it says or doesn't say right before that election matters. Like, don't insult our intelligence.
And also, it's been testified to that, like not everybody reads it, but you know who does? The people that vote for Trump. Like isn't that ultimately who you would want to keep that story from? Yeah, David Pecker
testified to that. Yeah, like that's basically, yeah, we'll get into that later, but yeah, exactly. He argued that the Inquirer bought a lot of stories from a lot of different people over decades that they never published. So it was a common practice and not fraud. He then argued that Pecker would have published the doorman story about the Trump love child if it turned out to be true, but didn't run it because he found out it was false. Blanche said that if Pecker was really trying to help Trump, why would he consider running a story that would hurt him? Blanche then addressed the Karen McDougal story. He said that she didn't want the story published at all anyway, which, oh yeah, this is so stupid. He said that she didn't want the story published at all anyway, which is why she sold it to Pecker, which, what does that matter? Not at all. That's just, he argued,
she didn't. Yeah, she didn't want all the turmoil that goes along with sharing that story.
She's a woman that doesn't want to be like crucified. Yeah,
had some
but
foresight.
I mean, it has no bearing on anything. He argued that Trump wasn't responsible for killing that story, since that is what she wanted to happen to benefit herself, not help Trump. Like, what? He also argued that's what a quid pro quo is. You know what I'm saying? Of course, There's got to be some benefit to the person. He also argued that Pecker has less credibility as a witness because he was given immunity by the prosecution for his cooperation. Like, Pecker basically, got immunity because he had a campaign finance violation, essentially. For Trump.
Has nobody ever explained, like, mutually beneficial to Blanche? Does he think that, like, if it's beneficial to one person, then it's the opposite for the other person? Like, yeah, this was good for Karen McDougal. It was also good for Trump. It was good for both of them. This was what some folks call a win-win situation.
You know what I think is interesting? I think it was Rachel Maddow that pointed this out. Like, how Trump never denied sleeping with Karen McDougal and denied sleeping with Stormy. And it's like, I think he clearly likes Karen McDougal. You know what I mean?
Well, they had like a real relationship.
Yeah, like he never denied it.
Yeah.
And that was another example I was saying of like how Michael Cohen, like if he was gonna lie, could have lied to make the prosecution's life easier. Like he easily could have said, Michael Cohen's testimony when he said, I asked Trump if he'd slept with Karen McDougal, he easily could have said, yeah, he said yes, but he said, she's a nice lady, right? Like that's the response Michael Cohen said that Trump gave him when he asked.
I do think that's a good point, and I don't know that it matters at all because we're not in the judge or the minds of the jurors. But we are looking at a guy in Michael Cohen who the testimony that came out that people are trying to crucify him for, like he was open about that. He was open about all of it. Michael Cohen took a lot of dings to himself. Like obviously he was criticized heavily for being on this app, and I actually think that looking back, I probably agree with that, actually. I don't think that was the right move. I bet he probably agrees with that, too.
You know what's weird, I realize, is that, like, we as people specifically that are in political lives on TikTok all the time, we're very desensitized, like, to Michael Cohen, but not because, like, admit it, Michael Cohen to us that hang out in political lives, he's probably one of the tamer people.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, Michael Cohen is by far, think about some of the people, like, we all see in lives. Like, Michael Cohen just seems tame to me. And I thought it was so interesting because Lawrence O'Donnell and Lisa Rubin were talking, and they're like, oh my God, like, when they played, because Todd Blanche played again yesterday recordings of Michael Cohen's podcast, and Lawrence O'Donnell's like, he sounds like a lunatic, and I was like, he sounds like one of the tamest people in political life.
Yeah, come to TikTok.
I was like,
Lawrence
meet the rest
so
of us.
professional.
Yeah. Lawrence O'Donnell would not last 5 minutes in a political live on TikTok. It would.
I think he would maybe give up on America.
No, he would. Like, They think like Michael Cohen's crazy. It's like Michael Cohen's one of the most normal of all of us. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
Blanche said that Cohen's story about the recording he made of his conversation with Trump in 2017, the one about Karen McDougal and planning to pay in cash, made no sense because he said the purpose of the recording was to play it for Pecker. Remember, or that's what Michael Cohen said, that he recorded that, just like that's why he stopped recording right after Trump said like, okay, let's, Trump said, oh, let's pay in cash, and Michael Cohen's like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
And that was just so David Pecker would understand and stop harassing him that Trump intended to pay, because Trump was again refusing to pay. Made no sense because he said the purpose of the recording was
By the way, again, going to show that Michael Cohen at the time would go to great lengths to protect Donald Trump. Because what is David Pecker saying here? Like, this fucker's not going to pay me. I'm not going to do his dirty work. And Cohen's like, please keep doing his dirty work. Please, 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 please. I'll get him to pay you. I'll get him to pay you. And this drags on for months. And finally Pecker's like, yeah, you've said that. You've said it a million times. I don't believe you. And Cohen's like, okay, well, I'll let you hear it from the boss then. Like, but obviously didn't tell Trump. And he made that recording, again, in furtherance of his loyalty to Donald Trump, to make sure these stories didn't come out. This adds credibility to Cohen in my eyes. I think it shows who he was, what his role was, and that he and others around Trump would do anything to not let those negative stories come out.
Yeah, and again, David, and it wasn't just that, like, that situation that David Pecker was threatening with, right? David Pecker was at the end of his rope because he's like, I can't cover up this missing 150,000, and so he started saying, well, I have a drawer, I have a drawer on Trump, and if you get me paid, and I'll give you all the stuff in the drawer, like, basically, again, to protect Donald Trump. So the conversation
with and rubber bands. That's all it was.
The conversation,
Trump loved it. The toy chest.
All this stuff in the drawer. I get it now. I was like, what are you talking about? Okay, sorry. It made no sense because he said the purpose of the recording was to play it for Pecker, but then he never did that and gave no explanation why. He said that Cohen testified that Trump because it was just, the whole point was just holding him off till after the election, right? Like, that was always the point, because Trump didn't want to pay. And Trump kept, just keep pushing him off. If we can make it past the election, I don't care what comes out.
Don't you think, though, that goes to, like, to prove that while Donald Trump and everybody around him were doing this, I don't think they really understood what could possibly happen. And I think that's fair, because none of us understood what could happen. When Bragg announced these charges, we were like, what? This sounds weird. So I'm not surprised that they didn't recognize later on that they needed to bury this. I think they just thought it was done. I don't think any of them thought in their minds like, oh, somebody can come after us for election interference, for burying the story. I just think that it was oversight. I think none of them thought about it until it was too late. And now they're in like, oh shit, we got to figure out a different story for this. But they were so cavalier about it, and they just let it go for so long that I think they just all thought they were in the clear. They didn't realize what could happen to them.
Jen, I'm just leaving my backup in the queue. I don't need it up. I was just doing our thing we agreed on. Okay, so he said that Cohen testified that Trump assistant Ronna Graff was in and out of that meeting, but she was never asked if she remembered it by the prosecution. He then argued that the recording of the call cuts off when Trump says the word check, and might have been about to say, check with my people. Oh my God, it's so good. The argument that switched, it's like, yeah, I get, if you believe that, if you were born yesterday, that would not make sense with what he was saying previously, but okay. The argument then switched to the Stormy Daniels allegations. Blanche said that her story had already been published by a small publication in 2011. See, again, this goes to the prosecution's argument, right? It did. Yeah. Like, that's the point. Yeah, she brought out a story in 2011 about this. It wasn't worth any money then. Why was it worth any money 2 weeks before the election?
What's the difference?
She had a very small window when this was worth something, and she could cash in on it. What was the difference?
I didn't check the dates, but maybe Trump got married to Melania like right after the Access Hollywood tape, and we just didn't see it. I don't remember exactly when they were married. Weird how his marriage, like them finding out and it affecting his marriage, was never a problem until he was in the middle
Exactly.
of a campaign and was under like the most pressure possible. He was on the tipping point of being removed as the candidate. Then it suddenly was worth the money. Like none of you Trumpers that are in here believe that. Not one of you fucking believes that.
We are accepting opposition if
You
you would like
just
to
don't-
argue about it.
Yeah, you just don't care. And that's fine. Nobody requires you to care. Like, if you want to vote for somebody like Donald Trump, that's fine. But can you guys stop pretending that you believe this shit? None of you do. You just hope that he gets off so he can get into office. If we can get past this and be a little more honest about it, we could probably have better discussions. But none of you believe what Trump is selling you. None of you do. You don't care. You just hope that it's enough to get him off.
They got married on 1/22/2005. That's good to know. I didn't know the exact date. I can't hear you.
So it was after 2016 then, that or
Sassy
before.
Soul wrote that in the comments. Yeah. So.
Oh, okay. So
no,
they didn't get married during the campaign.
Is that when they got married? Yeah. So they did not get married right after or right before the Access Hollywood tape.
We like to check our facts here and get them straight. So he did not get married during the campaign to Melania, turns out.
The argument then switched to the Stormy Daniels allegations. Okay. Blanche said that her story had already been published by a small publication in 2011, so it was already out there. He argued that Cohen wanted to pay off Stormy himself without telling Trump about it so he could later take credit for it with Trump. He then argued that the deal was negotiated between Davidson, so Keith Davidson, Stormy Daniels' lawyer, and Dylan Howard, who's like David Pecker's number 2 at the Inquirer with AMI, and that Trump was not part of the negotiations. He cited other deals that they did together that he said were done to extort people and had nothing to do with politics. Again, this goes like, even if you believe like, right, Keith Davidson firmly like was very angry and defending himself against extortion allegations, but let's just say, okay, Keith Davidson was a lawyer who specialized in like helping people extort people. That still has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, and he kind of is a guy that does that. Yeah, a little bit.
Like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can think Keith Davidson is a shitty person, but that doesn't have anything to do with this. Blanche then argued that Stormy later profited off the story, despite the original payoff, by doing a book, a documentary, and selling products, and this showed that her intent was just to extort Trump for her own benefit. Like, yeah, no. We've already gone through this. Everybody is making selling merch involved in this case.
Yeah. Also, yeah, it doesn't matter. Stormy Daniels did this at this time to get the $130,000. That's why she did it. Doesn't matter. Wait, like, of course that's why she did it. Nobody's even, I don't even know why people talk about that. Like, of course that's what she was doing. Of course she was getting money when she could. Of course that's what she did. It doesn't change anything else.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't have anything to do with it. He then gave a strange argument about the Access Hollywood tape. Oh yeah, this is probably the most insulting part, like, of insulting the jury's intelligence. These people were all alive when the Access Hollywood tape came out. We all remember it. He said that that was a very stressful time for Trump and his family because of what was revealed to the public, but it was not the, quote, doomsday event, as suggested by Cohen and the prosecution. He said that Daniels wasn't called to testify to the grand jury because her testimony wasn't necessary to the case, but they called her during the trial solely to embarrass Trump to the public. No, that's not. That's clearly not true. The reason is because Trump
just a
smeared
side effect.
her credibility, right? Like that. Yeah. I mean, that's the only reason her testimony was allowed is because Trump denied the encounter, and then she was able to defend her credibility. But I said this, and I still believe this to be very true. Like what Stormy Daniels' testimony did, because it was very powerful. It showed us, right? It's a very uncomfortable, very messy. There's sordid details. It's crazy to hear. And that's what we all would have heard, right? A week before the election, if Donald Trump did not pay to keep her quiet.
That's such a good point. If it's so damning that you don't want anybody to hear it, maybe that's why you paid $130,000 so nobody would hear it. You're making only now is it damning, but back then it wouldn't have been damning, right?
And just remember, this isn't in reality what the jurors are able to hear. Like, they saw a tweet. Trump admitted in a tweet to reimbursing Stormy, and they saw that. But there's a whole court case in California where Trump is referring to the payments as reimbursements in court filings.
I think it was something like, this wasn't hush money, it was a repayment or something like that. What was the exact words? I mean, it's so, there's no wiggling out of what he's saying here. And again, the jurors know this, and I don't think it got into this in this article, but one of the interesting things that I've liked on Twitter is just hearing, there's a few lawyers, Lisa Rubin's one of them, there's a few that we follow that are in there regularly, but they regularly talk about the body language of the jury and how the jury seems to respond to certain people. And one of the things that they keep bringing up is that the jury seems to love the judge. They respect the judge, they love him, and they don't like that he gets attacked all the time, and that when Donald Trump's
they're very bonded to the judge.
Blanche, when he was doing his closing, they said the jury looks bored, they're nodding off. That's not a jury to me that sounds like, oh, we're still guessing. And if they're nodding off during Todd Blanche's, but they're listening during the prosecution, you can infer whatever you want. But to me, I would say, to me, this seems like they think he's guilty and they want to make sure they have the facts right. And that Todd Blanche isn't presenting them anything that is cutting down their opinion that Trump is guilty.
Okay, so this is really interesting because I didn't put this together. So this tweet, the tweet that the jury, this was entered as an exhibit and it was reinforced yesterday. It was on the same day as Rudy Kaluti's interview with Hannity. Rudy Kaluti on May 3rd, 2018, went on Hannity as Trump's personal attorney. He succeeded Cohen in being Trump's personal attorney once Cohen caught a case. And then he went on Hannity and said it was a reimbursement. And then on the same day, Trump tweeted this: Mr. Cohen, an attorney, received a monthly retainer not from the campaign and having nothing to do with the campaign, from which he entered into through reimbursement a private contract between two parties known as a non-disclosure agreement or NDA.
A what? What was that? A what? What was that?
Reimbursement.
Wait, so now this obviously, because Donald Trump is innocent, he's not talking about an NDA for Stormy Daniels. He must be talking about an NDA for someone else, right? Because he's not guilty here.
I mean, he couldn't have foreseen this, but I bet he really wishes, again, there was a whole civil trial about this, because the reason they were doing this and so angry, it's because Stormy Daniels was, in their view, violating their NDA. That's what the civil trial in California was about, to try to shut her up, to prove, hey, I paid. I'm reimbursing someone who paid her. She needs to be quiet. That's right. What they were trying to do.
Yeah, we paid for this, and then a few years later, we didn't pay shit. We didn't do any of this. I know we tweeted about it, and I know we went to court about it, and we tried to shut somebody up by using the evidence that we paid them. But now in 2024, I guess that's 7 years later. Yeah, we didn't pay any money.
So Blanche then took a scattershot approach. This is what I was talking, it's like shooting buckshot, just hoping you get a hit.
He got to the Trump
is one
portion.
Of these things, I'm just going to state a bunch of crap. Is one of these things enough to make one of you hold out for a hung jury?
I thought reading this that this was the part that Trump wrote. That's what I thought. It was so scatterbrained and rough.
No, well, this is okay. I do know some parts about. Yeah, so this gets weird, and then the top 10 things why there's reasonable doubt is even more weird. We'll get in. Okay, so Blanche then took a scattershot approach to discrediting Cohen. He first argued that Cohen wanted a job in the White House, but knew that he had no chance of getting one. Okay, cool. He then noted that Trump himself never signed the NDAs with McDougal or Daniels, which he argued made no sense because it could never be enforced if Trump wasn't a party. Then he said the White House call logs show that his call went to Trump's bodyguard Schiller instead of Trump. So how do they know he really spoke to Trump? He said that Cohen was dealing with a 14-year-old that was prank calling him at the time. So the call could have been to talk to Schiller about that. That was the most brilliant thing of Steinglass's whole, like, he had a Steinglass was on fire yesterday. That was one of the most, but notice what he did there. He's just saying a bunch of things and hoping like one means something to someone on that jury. But as far as that 14-year-old prank call thing, Steinglass shut that down. Like Todd Blanche was also trying to say there was no time to talk about the 14-year-old.
This was brilliant.
Yeah, and Steinglass basically, we'll get into that later, basically improvised and showed them that it was very possible. He basically reenacted the call, and it only took 49 seconds. So I guess it is possible.
Yeah, guys, keep tapping the screen. We're almost to 200,000. Somebody, Kelso told me to check donations. I'm looking. I don't see anything that came in. I don't know if that's on my end, if we've got a problem there. But if you would like to donate to our cause, right there is the Cash App and Venmo. It's there. If you're on YouTube, it's I think it's like right there. You can see it on YouTube as well. There's even something you can scan. I forget what those things are called. But we do rely on that generosity. I know we're not taking opposition right now, and I'm doing a poor job reading the comments.
We
I
aren't?
Well, I mean, we don't have opposition right now.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay. I was like, we are taking opposition.
Yeah,
If anyone, we can talk about this or whatever's on your mind. It doesn't necessarily have to be on topic.
Maybe don't call up, or maybe don't show up, though, to just insult police. Maybe,
Yeah, that would
maybe
be nice.
less of that.
Yeah, I don't feel like spending the day in fight or flight. That was yesterday. Blanche then noted all the various things, okay, so that Cohen admitted lying about, calling him the MVP of liars. He actually called him the gloat, the greatest liar of all time, which I agree. I think, I can't remember who said this, like which pundit I was listening to, but yeah, that's when it got really bad for Todd Blanche. Like he tried to be like cute and like say these things, and it was not cute. He played clips from Cohen's podcast. Oh yeah, this is what I was talking about, to show how biased he is towards Trump. Lisa Rubin was like, I think this was Todd Blanche's best moment. She's like, it wasn't even Todd Blanche's moment. Like she's like those tapes of Michael Cohen's podcast, you know, the jury's thinking, I've never met this guy. You know, to me, that's just like a day in political lives on TikTok. Like Michael Cohen, like probably wouldn't even get to speak because he's not aggressive enough. But you know, to each,
he's just so polite. He goes on Hog Boss's live and he like can't get a word in.
He'd be drowned.
Like, guys,
he would literally.
He's got the
hand
raised emoji that he puts up that all the polite people on TikTok use.
Yeah, exactly. He played clips from Cohen's podcast to show how biased he is towards Trump, giving him a motive to lie. He then talked about how much money Cohen made off his 2 books and his podcast, and all that was entirely based off Trump. Blanche then ended with his 10 reasons why there's reasonable doubt. He shouldn't have done this.
I just goes David Letterman to close things out.
he like Blanche's career, he hasn't been a defense attorney that long. He's been a prosecutor, right? He worked for like the Southern District of New York. He's a federal prosecutor. And I heard someone say, like on some channel, that this is a common thing for federal prosecutors, but it's usually a top 5, never more than a top 5. And he's like, I don't know, like if he thought it would be better if he had 10, but he's like, they don't even make sense. It got worse and
10
worse.
10 sounds better, in all fairness. Like 10 is better than 5, I think. Especially
but not if they're
in this
not
case.
Points. Like,
yeah,
that's
fair
the
enough.
point. Some of the points don't make sense. Cohen created the invoices to be billed for legal services. That's 1. Cohen created the invoices to be billed for legal services. 2. No proof Trump saw the vouchers or knew what he was signing. 3. The fact that Trump reported payments to the IRS and on his government ethics forms showed he had no intent to defraud. He lied on them. It's the most important thing.
These forms that he lied on are proof that he was not trying to lie to you. Oh, okay. Got it.
4. There was no evidence that any of this was done with intent to influence the election. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, Todd. Like, Whatever you say. You've been hanging around Trump too long. Like, you've drank the Kool-Aid. You're in cognitive dissonance, sir. Like,
well, it's important.
The math's not mathing for you anymore.
I do think it's important to remember that Todd Blanche has nothing to work with. Like, this might actually be the best possible defense you could present for Trump.
I agree. I agree.
He's probably doing a great job. I don't think so.
Andrew Weissman didn't think so either. And Andrew Weissman, former general counsel of the FBI, and probably, you know, him and Neil Katyal are like my legal gods. And Andrew Weissman was not.
That's
impressed.
a good point. They really have.
And he would
him.
say if he likes something, someone he was definitely like. What he actually said, and I think it's another time when women aren't getting the credit. Like, he basically was saying, why is Todd Blanche doing this summation? He's like, the most experienced, the best lawyer they have at that defense table is Susan Necklace. And he's like, and they were saying, Lawrence O'Donnell was saying that while the summation was going on, Susan Necklace was so far from Trump that she was sitting like almost like not at the table with the junior lawyers that like you're not supposed to sit by. Like, she should be sitting by the client. Like, Andrew Weissman was like, I bet that she literally wanted to like scream while she was listening to Todd Blanche fail.
What if she just has like a sensitive nose?
Well, I mean that, but also I think this is another case of like, I told you this, I gave you guys an article a long time ago to read, but this is, you know, Trump's good old boys club. Todd Blanche bought a house like around the corner from Trump so he can be at his beck and call. Like, Susan Nicholas did the best job during this trial of the defense lawyers. She has the most experience. Like I said, Todd Blanche has only tried a few defense cases. He's a prosecutor. Yeah. And she should have done this closing. Like, but of course, Trump can't have a woman unless it's Alina Habba, who's like, he let her burn down a case but can't let the most experienced defense lawyer do the closing. So
I have this sneaking suspicion Trump doesn't judge his women attorneys based on their performance or their background. I have this sneaking
he just doesn't respect women's intelligence. Like, he does not believe that a woman is the best for the job. Like, if he's doing like a favor because he wants something from a woman, he could let a woman do a job. But I don't think he fundamentally believes that Susan Necklace was the best choice. And that's too bad, because Todd Blanche was not it. So, let's see. There was no evidence. This is 4. There was no evidence that any of this was done with the intent to influence the election. Okay, Todd. 5.
Sure, bud.
There's nothing illegal about paying to kill a story, and celebrities do it all the time. Now he's just saying random things. 6.
Okay.
AMI, which is the parent company of the National Enquirer, if you don't remember, would have run the Love Child story if it was true, which is inconsistent with the theory that they only wanted to help Trump. 7. McDougal never wanted her story published, so there was no need for anyone to catch and kill it. There obviously was.
Then why did they catch and kill it?
Yeah, it make sense. Like, and
all these people just spending their hard-earned money to help Trump. Well, Trump doesn't know. They're so desperate to get Trump's love and attention that they're just all catch and killing stories for no reason.
Well, all of the last few ones I read, like Steinglass, painstaking, went through every email, call, text message, and you can see like the flurry of activity that happened, like when these negotiations were happening, when they were freaking out. Like, it's just delusion, you know. Steinglass piled evidence on top of evidence that none of that is true. Number 8, Stormy Daniels' story had already been made public in a small publication in 2011, which again proves the prosecution's theory more than the defense. I don't even get why you would say that. Number 9, some of the testimony didn't line up with the documents, and exhibits entered and parts of the story were intentionally omitted. And I actually think this is why Steinglass was so thorough. Like, you know, from the prosecution's case, such as the harassing text from the 14-year-old to Cohen, you know. Well, don't worry, Steinglass went back through that entire case, every tweet, and clarified everything for you. And 10.
Real quick. Oh, good. Do 10. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Cohen is a habitual liar and is biased against Trump because he hates him. He called him the GLOAT, greatest liar of all time. Blanche then ended by telling the jury that even if they don't like Trump personally or his politics, they still shouldn't find him guilty because the DA failed to prove their case.
Beautiful. A couple people asked, "Is the jury back yet?" I don't think so, but
yeah, can everyone keep an eye on that for us? Like,
I'm watching it, but I did want to read a couple of tweets that have come in today since we started. The first from Felice's longtime partner Ron Filipkowski. Trump apparently slept through jury instructions. And so he said, Trump sleeps through jury instructions, then wakes up and wants to know what happened because Trump truthed after sleeping through jury instructions. I don't even know what the charges are in this rigged case. I'm entitled to specificity just like anyone else.
Some madness.
There is no crime. And then just Brooklyn Dad Defiant, who's I don't even know who they are, but I just like this, said, Trump has to stay his ass in court every hour of every day the jury is in deliberation.
Yeah, Trump hasn't slept.
When it gets better. Better grab a sweater, you chilly bitch.
I love Ron Filipkowski.
God, if a chilly bitch was beautiful.
It never gets old. It never gets old. Okay, so... Sorry, I'm opening up the prosecution's closing argument in the Trump trial. I think we should go through this now, which is number 2 in the outline. Let's try to get through this as fast as possible, and then we'll do clips. Actually, or do you want to watch Rachel Maddow? I don't care. We could go. I mean, that we've heard what the defense did. They talk a lot more about Steinglass. I wanted to go through the defense because I don't think they really covered it as much. So
dealer's choice. Let's ask the chat. You want to do Maddow?
Well, it's not just Maddow. It's like Andrew Weiss. They're doing like a whole panel thing for the trial. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do Maddow. I think I'm feeling
good time for me to pee. I'll be right back.
Yeah, you go. Jen, is my backup account should be requested, right? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I think we're muted. Okay, and we are ready. Guys, keep tapping the screen. Let's get to 230K. Again, we are accepting opposition. And while we're listening, let's try to keep tapping the screen as much as possible and share the live. Because eventually, we would like to hopefully talk to somebody today and get their thoughts on the summations.
Today, we're going to talk about how those points are landing legally and more broadly. We're then going to try to answer some of the questions that came up today at trial, like, for example, why did the judge yell at Trump's defense lawyer as soon as he was done with his summation?
Because he tried it. And by the way, he doesn't yell. Like, just to be clear, like Juan Marchand just gets quieter. You ever have an adult who like is almost scarier because when they're mad? This is just the way it was described. Like, he doesn't, yeah, I do that too. He doesn't yell. He literally, I love these, gets quieter. Like when he's really mad. Those are the scariest people.
Yeah, that's you. That's 100% you.
That's true. That is true. When I'm really mad, I'm like silent.
Right when the jury went to lunch. Why did he say, I think that statement was outrageous, Mr. Blanche? We will try to answer that question tonight and more. But we need to start with what has just happened in the last few moments, because the summation from the prosecution literally just ended within the last 5 minutes. So I'm just going to read you. We do not have an official transcript at this point. I'm going to read to you from our reporters updates on what has happened about the way the prosecution's summation concluded. Forgive me for this not being word for word perfect, but this is the best that we've got. Joshua Steinglass is the prosecutor who's giving the prosecution's summation, their closing argument. He says, quote, "Listen carefully to the judge's instructions. It is a crime to willfully create inaccurate tax forms. The defendant, meaning Trump, had an incentive to keep the conspiracy quiet, and post-election, an effort to conceal pre-election as part of the same conspiracy and to prevent the catch and kill scheme from going public. He had every reason to continue to conceal his election fraud. And as Cohen tells you, at the end of 2017, he had already announced his intention to run again. Any single one of the things I just mentioned, those unlawful means, is enough for you to conclude that the Trump Tower conspiracy, meaning the conspiracy that Trump hatched with the company that owns the National Enquirer, the Trump Tower conspiracy violated New York state election law. And the judge will tell you, you don't have to agree, meaning you, the members of the jury, do not have to agree with one another, which unlawful means.
Yes, I forgot about this. Yes, so this is very interesting, right? Because we were, and again, the judge's charge was this morning. So we're going to get into this in more detail tomorrow, and I'll get the whole scoop for you guys, and we'll really dig into it so we can try to understand the judge's instructions. But yeah, basically, right, like, again, this is charged as 175.10 falsification of business records in the first degree, and then there's the underlying object offense. Turns out it doesn't, whatever the unlawful means are, right, in 17-152, it's like conspiring to prevent or promote or prevent someone being elected through unlawful means. None of the jurors have to agree on what those unlawful means are.
This is important as you guys go through the day today, because this is what the right is running with this morning. They're running with the judge is corrupt because the judge said, you don't all have to agree on what charges, like I'll add them up at the end. Like, that's not true. They didn't say that. But again, not every one of these charges has to be proven in order for the what's the number again?
There's 34 felony counts.
Sorry, the criminal code.
175.10 for the falsification of business records, but for the underlying object offense, the one, right, that could be 17. The one we're specifically talking about is New York statute 17-152.
Yeah, so it could be all of them. It could be one of them. One person could say guilty on 15. The other one could say guilty on 3. What they're saying is that, like, one of these crimes in concert with the others, that's what makes a guilty verdict here. So when you hear Republicans today try and claim that Judge Merchan is just saying that you could, like, nobody has to agree, as long as you guys all think he did something wrong, then he's guilty.
Well, I just want to clarify, because I think that sounded just a little bit confusing. So for each count, there's 34 counts. You have to unanimously agree, right? 175.10 that this business record was falsified, right? And then there's got to be an underlying object offense. And we're specifically right now talking about 17-152. Like, the unlawful means. You don't have to agree on what that is. But each charge, right, there's 34 counts, and they have to unanimously agree on each count for that to be a conviction.
I probably explained that poorly. What I was saying is, it doesn't have to be all 34. That was the point I was trying to make. And people can be split on, like, on which ones they're guilty on, which ones they're not. Like, that's okay. That might remove that particular charge, but them saying not guilty on one charge doesn't mean that we get rid of all the other charges. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. Is that a better way I explained it that way? Was that better?
Yeah. There's 34 different counts, right? He could be convicted on one count, right? But, like, it's interesting to say, like, just to note that these sentences would be served concurrently. So actually, it's the same damage. Whether he's convicted on one count or he's convicted on 34, the sentences would be served concurrently, I found out this morning. So really, it's all the same, right? You know what I'm saying? They're not layering sentencing on top of each other. Right. But yeah, you don't have to be convicted. They don't have to agree on all 34.
To defraud in this case cannot be any clearer. Why didn't he just pay Stormy Daniels directly, one transaction? Instead, they devised this elaborate scheme, secret FedEx packages, an effort to conceal the truth. He didn't want anyone to find out about the conspiracy to steal the election. Everything was cloaked in lies. Lies in the invoices, lies in the bank paperwork, lies in the 1099, meaning the tax forms that were filed with the IRS, lies in the bank transfers, the shell companies, the encrypted apps, misleading denials. The name of the game, Steinglass says, was, quote, concealment for the man who benefited most, former President Trump. Now, our reporter notes in this moment, Steinglass is getting fired up at this point, speaking up and going rapid fire through the above remarks. Steinglass says to the jury, quote, you have been a remarkable group. I know this has been a really long summation. Boy, has it. I apologize for trading brevity for thoroughness, but we only get one shot. The defendant has a constitutional right to a fair trial. He has a right to make us prove our burden. There are contracts, emails, and texts that corroborate every bit of testimony. In this particular case, the prosecutor says, the evidence is, quote, literally overwhelming. So now he's gotten that trial. He's had his day in court. And remember, as the judge will tell you, and as Mr. Blanche told you, meaning Trump's defense counsel, as Mr. Blanche told you, the law is the law. There is no special law for this defendant. Donald Trump cannot shoot someone on Fifth Avenue during rush hour and get away with it. Objection from the defense. Judge Merchan, sustained. Prosecutor, you, the jury, have the ability to hold the defendant accountable. Remember, you are the ones who have the opportunity to hear every witness and see every document. Focus on the evidence and the logical inferences that can be drawn from that evidence. Use your common sense and follow the judge's legal instructions.
Listen to what he said there.
Steinglass then says,
he said, use your common sense, which is part of the jury instructions in New York, and follow the judge's instructions, which I feel is a signal, right? Like he likes what the judge is going to say. Like in the morning before the summation started, what Judge Merchan said was, "Hey, we're all, to the lawyers. If you have any objection to the judge's the jury's instructions, like, are there any objections?" They said no, and they're like, "Okay, that's set. As soon as these summations are over, I'm going to give them. Like, we're not changing them." So I think Steinglass saying like, listen to the judge's instructions, I think that's a good sign. He's saying like he likes what they are, and he's
it also adds credibility that he's in this, doing this process the right way, right? He's telling the jury, hey, this is my job, that's his job. Instructions wise, go to him. And I also think the reason he says that is because they were very much instructed by the defense. The defense tried to do the judge's job, and I think it showed like a good dichotomy between the two. And it showed that one is like being serious about where we are and what we're doing here, and they're keeping the rules. And the other one is just like throwing shit to the wall and just seeing what can stick.
Yeah, and like Steinglass is my kind of guy. Like I think he said it. He said like, we only get one shot at this. I need to be thorough. Like, this is the most important summation, the first criminal trial of a former president. Like, and he was not going to stop, until he was made sure they had the information they needed, which I appreciate because I like detail. But it's not necessarily it was long, and they're going to be critical. Like when everyone, they'll talk about how long it was, and if that could have, what could the jury listen that long?
To the jury pointedly, quote, come back in here and say guilty. Guilty of 34 counts of falsifying, counts to cover up a conspiracy to corrupt the 2016 election. And then he concludes, in the interest of justice and in the name of the people of the state of New York, I ask you to find the defendant guilty. Thank you. And he wrapped at 7:57 p.m. Eastern time, whereupon Judge Merchan told the court and told the jurors, we will get started tomorrow at 10 a.m. Now, why would they be getting started tomorrow at 10 a.m. after the closing arguments just concluded? It's because a very, very, very important thing is about to happen next. We now know it will happen tomorrow, 10 a.m. with the jury. It will be the judge instructing the jury about how to deliberate. And that sounds like, oh, that must be a boilerplate thing. That sounds like that must be the sort of, do your job, don't be biased kind of generic patriotic instructions they always get. No, the instructions to the jury is very much a contested matter. It has been hotly fought over by both sides. Judge Merchan started today's proceedings by saying essentially to the prosecution and to the defense that he had heard them out in terms of what they wanted from his jury instructions, and he had made his decision. He asked them if they had further comment on what his instructions should be. Neither of them said they did, and so he announced at the beginning of today's proceedings, okay then, effectively, you know what my jury instructions will be. It is final. That will happen when you are done with the summations. He said that at the very start of what ended up being a very, very long day in court today, starting in the 9 a.m. hour, not ending until just now. We have so much to talk about. It was such a big day. Let's start by going right to the courthouse. Let's bring in MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. She has been at the courthouse for the entire trial. She has been earning her kibble today.
I feel like I've become
Lisa,
friends with her.
thank you so much for sticking it out for the whole.
She has that type of she's like Nicole Wallace. Like she makes you feel like I want to hang out with her.
Shoot the DM.
Thank you for.
These people are just highly educated. It is like MSNBC is just a bunch of intellectuals. Like I didn't know that Rachel Maddow. I knew she went to Stanford. I just was looking it up last night. You know where she got her master's in public policy? Oxford. Like that explains. Yeah, I mean, not that she's not oozing intelligence, but yeah, like she went to Oxford. But then again, so did Senator Foghorn Leghorn, John Kennedy.
God bless him.
For joining us from outside. Right now, I have to ask your big picture take overall on how the two sides did with their summation and what you think it's most important for the country to understand about the way this trial concluded today.
I think the way this trial concluded today, Rachel, was with a very exhausted group of people upstairs. Let's start there. And not only the jury, but for example, all the court officers who have been protecting us, protecting this trial, they work as long as the judge says that the jury and the trial is going on. I asked them, well, at what point do you change shifts? And one of them looked at me and said, I'm here until the trial closes today. So you're looking at a group of people from reporters to the jury who are all a little bit tired. That having been said, my big takeaway at the end of the day is I feel a little bit like Goldilocks, still in search of the right bed. And that's because if Todd Blanche's closing was very light on detail and long on hyperbole, you got the exact opposite from Josh Steinglass in 4+ hours of excruciating detail, where he ping-ponged between call records and text messages and every single contact that could be used to corroborate the witness that they didn't want the jury to think this whole case rests on, Michael Cohen. They said Michael Cohen many, many, many fewer times than the defense did. If you were to listen to Josh Steinglass today, the star witnesses here were David Pecker, Hope Hicks, and all of the records from business records, meaning the 34 business records that are part of the felony counts here, to call records, text messages, emails, and Josh did a very thorough exegesis of the timeline here, starting in August of 2015 at that Trump
word?
Tower meeting where the conspiracy was formed.
I heard
exegesis. EXIGESIS.
What does that word mean?
It's like a summary.
Okay, I've never heard that before. Okay, thank you.
All the way through the end of 2018 with Michael Cohen's plea to 2 counts of election violations, one involving AMI's payment to Karen McDougal, the other involving his own payment.
It's a critical explanation or interpretation of a text. It's usually, that's what I was gonna say, because I learned it in a Bible. Like I used to have to take religion classes at my private school, and that's where I heard it. Yeah, it's traditionally applied to biblical text.
I thought it was just like a special exit for Jesus, but I guess it was exit Jesus. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, exit Jesus.
Conspiracy was formed, and going all the way through the end of 2018 with Michael Cohen's plea to 2 counts of election violations, one involving AMI's payment to Karen McDougal, the other involving his own payment to Stormy Daniels. And in between, you got everything from Madeleine Westerhout's talking about how Trump signed things in the White House, to details about Jeff McConney and Deborah Tarasoff and the Trump Organization in terms of how they process business records and anything and everything you can imagine in between. So I feel a little bit whiplashed right now having witnessed both of these closings, because one was so remarkably short on details and evidence and just all about sort of poking little holes and cherry picking evidence, and including some really obvious cherry picking of the testimony that the prosecution was able to refute. And then you've got Steinglass, who in 4+ hours went through every possible piece of evidence and maybe didn't make the sort of selective and judicious choices that somebody who has a little bit more distance would have made in trying to convince a jury who's been sitting here for 6 weeks that they can convict on something less than every single bit of the evidence. And just to underscore to you how detailed his closing was, at one point I looked up at the slides that he was showing. These are demonstratives that sort of encapsulate or summarize evidence. In the bottom right-hand corner, they have numbers on them that I noticed were ticking up with each time their trial tech or their trial technician or paralegal pressed a button to further animate or further the slides. At the last count when I left the courtroom, they were on slide 420. So that might give you a sense of how much detail was packed in there and why it's hard.
Look, and you'll hear different views on this, but I just have to say, me personally, like, say everything. I'm glad he said everything. Like, probably he should have should have been a couple hours shorter if he could, but like, I'm also glad he said everything, because I'd hate to be sitting here now listening to people saying, well, why didn't he say this? Well, why didn't he say this? Well, why didn't he corroborate this? Like, that's how people feel about Todd Blanche. Like, he didn't address any of the holes in the case that he needed to fill, which is understandable, right? Like, I think it's Ari Melber that said this, or it's like, he was like, just remember, if this was a cooking show or something, for the prosecution, they need to present a 5-course meal with like all the trimmings, right? It's got to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And the defense needs like an edible hot dog from a hot dog stand.
I just think we shouldn't be surprised that Trump's team is having a hard time filling holes. I think that's pretty on brand for the Trumps.
Oh my God.
In many respects, to see that forest from the trees, because we were just right in the woods with him today.
Lisa, thank you for that. I want to, I know we're going to be speaking with Lawrence as well, who was also just in there. I want to put what you just said to our lawyers who are also here on the panel with us. Katie and Ari, you were both in the courtroom as well today. What Lisa is describing there about two very different approaches to closing, mirrored in some ways by the difference between the openings. I was there for opening statements, and my feeling about the prosecution's opening statement versus the defense's opening statement was that the defense's opening statement was hard to follow, very emotional, sort of emotionally unpredictable, like, why are you yelling now? I don't know where this is coming from. And also just not very linear, whereas the prosecution's was calm, linear, and not as exciting, in part because it wasn't as weird. It sounds like there was a little bit of that in the closing today. This may just be the style of these two legal teams. But as a non-lawyer, I don't know how to translate that style into effectiveness for the jury. What Lisa was describing there makes me worry for the prosecution's sake that maybe they just gave them too much to chew on. What did you think, Art?
I thought it was a strong day for the prosecution because it was voluminous. It was so thorough, and you kind of felt that, and that helped them deal with the Cohen issue. But if you're asking me straight up, it was too long. It didn't need to be this long, and that may or may not matter in the end. But it was longer than
Ari's going gray, huh? Like, I never saw
than it needed to be. I think that's a fair statement.
Was the defense summation, which was first, was it also too long? Was it too short? And obviously, that was like 3 hours, roughly. Steinglass, the prosecution, went for 4+ hours. What did you think of the length of the defense summation?
The defense also could have been shorter because it still meandered, but it still hammered what it wanted to about Cohen and poking holes for reasonable doubt. I thought the prosecution today reminded everyone why you don't need Cohen, and this is a records case, and there's all of these records. I also would remind everyone, and I know sometimes we are repeating ourselves, but if this were a cooking show, it's not like both contestants have to make a great meal. The prosecution has to have a 5 course, perfect meal with every ingredient. And if the defense is able to serve an edible hot dog, that might be reasonable doubt. So I remind everyone at home, if sometimes, because again, we've talked about this, it's sort of like, wait, why are we being so nice to the defense? We're not being nice. The defense has to do less. If they can poke reasonable doubt for one juror more, they could get a mistrial.
Reasonable doubt for something that matters.
That's also on
brand.
brand. It's also on brand for Trump and his organization to have the opportunity to give somebody a 5-course meal and feed them fast food instead. That's also incredibly on brand for the Trumps.
Remember when they promised to buy the lawyers or the FBI like lunch or whatever at Mar-a-Lago, and Trump was like furious?
Yeah, and when they when you had sports teams come to the White House, he's like, I hope you guys love your McDonald's and Taco Bell.
Oh, that's part of, if we ever get to the
reference,
clips that I have today, that's there. Spotted, it's like spotted. Of course, there's like Ron Filipkowski found it, like bags and bags of McDonald's being carried into the courthouse.
Being down there today and watching, I think that it was clear, to the extent that anything changed, it's clear that the prosecution realized we may have a bigger Cohen problem than we even thought, even though we prepared for it. And the sign of that was they opened their big closing arguments, and you just remind everyone how important it is, by saying, okay, first let's talk about Cohen. We already told you he can lie. Here's more than one way to interpret these things. Here's the other things that support what he said. They basically said, if you want to throw this guy out, you can still convict, and that's fine. I think those are all true legal statements.
That is what I think, like, if you, I mean, it was 4+ hours. Like, how do you sum up what Steinglass was doing? But, like, that is what I would say ultimately he was doing. Like, he was highlighting David Pecker, Hope Hicks, Jeff McConnell, like and all of the paper trail, the emails, the texts, the phone calls, to basically say, okay, if you don't trust Michael Cohen, that's fine. You can convict without him.
Yeah.
But it showed you that by at least the end of the defense's summation, they were at least concerned enough to want to punch back on that, and then they did their business.
Lawrence has just walked out of the courtroom, and so I want to go to him next. And then, Katie, I want to get your take on this as well when we hear from him. Lawrence, you had a very, very, very long day in the courtroom today. I know you've just been able to get out to the camera, so I want to get your instant...
He looks so tired. Like, all of these people that come out of these courtrooms look like zombies. But today was yesterday was the longest day of court ever.
Bad hair day for him too.
Yeah, it's really windy in New York today too. Did you see, like, Lisa Rubin was like swallowing her own hair while talking?
Your overall take on what you saw, how things went today, and what you think was important for people to understand about how the summations unfolded.
Longest day I've ever had in a courtroom, Rachel, thanks to the prosecution closing, which I think everyone's going to agree was much longer than it had to be. However, the assistant district attorney is a very compelling speaker. He's very easy to listen to. And so you could be 2.5 hours into it and not feel as if you were 2.5 hours into it. By the time you were 4 hours into it, you knew you were 4 hours into it. That's what's inevitable. He had some really, really powerful moments. He did his own imagined version.
Oh, this is okay.
90-second phone call.
This is what I was talking about what Josh Steinglass is amazing. Like, he talks for 4.5 hours, but again, even in the transcripts, when you read the transcripts, it's like I can't describe it, but Josh Steinglass is a likable person. Like, he's just very personable. The jury seems to respond well to him.
What number was this clip again?
This is not a clip. This is YouTube TV. This is Trump. This is last night. Rachel Maddow's 2-hour.
Is this? Sorry, Kim's just asking on the outline so she can post it.
It's not on the out. This is YouTube TV. This is just Rachel Maddow's show. Right. So if you want to see this, just look up Rachel Maddow's show last night.
And Michael, thank you for the donation. Guys, keep tapping. We're at 250,000. That's amazing.
Or Kim, you might be able to find a link to it that you could just put in. It's a special 2-hour Rachel Maddow last night.
Okay. There's the Cash App. There's the Venmo. If you guys would like to support us, you can do so there. Also, make sure that after this, you go to YouTube and check it out. And did I do it? I think I did it. Go ahead.
By the time you were 4 hours into it, you knew you were 4 hours into it. That's what's inevitable. He had some really, really powerful moments. He did his own imagined version of the 90-second phone call that's in dispute in this case, where, according to Michael Cohen, he called Keith Schiller. Keith Schiller he spoke to Keith Schiller about some harassment he was suffering, and then he spoke to Donald Trump for the remainder of the 90 seconds. And we saw the assistant DA basically come up with an entire version of that conversation and how that could have gone in 49 seconds. So it was one of those moments in a courtroom that was very impressive, very, very, very effective. But sorry, he this is a kind of he's the kind of student who really fills up the exam paper. Doesn't leave anything out. And oddly enough, it did not feel that repetitive. That's the funny thing about it. But the essence of it was basically, look, this was in fact a reimbursement. In fact, there was a moment there where he rattled off all of the reasons why this was a reimbursement to Michael Cohen and
it was brilliant.
Paycheck. And at the end of all of the reasons he gave for it being a reimbursement, and then going to the Trump position that it's not a reimbursement, his loudest moment in the courtroom today was saying, does anyone believe that? And I think he's right. There's no one on the jury who does not believe that that was indeed a reimbursement arrangement for Michael Cohen. And the question here for this jury is just, is Donald Trump guilty in a falsifying business records scheme that was entered into in order to corruptly affect an election? And that may be, for the jury, a complicated question.
Lawrence, can I just ask you, in terms of Todd
Thanks for the
Blanche's
donation, Chuck.
summation, a lot of reporters today described that as hard to follow, as being, because he wasn't going chronologically, the way the sort of exhaustive summation from the prosecution went, that Blanche's summation was sometimes hard to know what he was getting at, what point he was trying to make, other than going liar, liar, liar at Michael Cohen and trying to make the fact that Michael Cohen has been proven to lie something that should be fatal to the case. What was it, in fact, hard to follow?
Well, listen, I've watched an awful lot of criminal lawyers in my life trying and struggling to defend a guilty client. That's what it looks like. There's no good way. There's no easy way. I don't see how Todd Blanche could have done any better, actually, in his summation today, given the facts that he's loaded down with, given the
That's what you said, Jay.
complexities that he failed to deal with. And the DA pointed out this point that I've been making steadily about the defense argument, which is that it's an argument in conflict with itself.
Yes.
Because the defense argument is Michael Cohen was paid this big paycheck in 2017, and it had nothing to do with reimbursement of the $130,000 to Stormy Daniels. But we know, and the defense knows, that the calculation of how much he would be paid was based on a document handwritten by Alan Weisselberg that includes the $130,000 to Stormy Daniels. That's never been explained by the defense. Not at any point did that get explained.
Or anybody I've ever talked to.
And then...
Like, that is, like, again, those, I think it's Exhibit 35 and 36, but we're talking about those handwritten papers. Yeah. How do you not? You have to address it. And Andrew Weissman says this, and I'll play it on Lawrence O'Donnell's show. But, like, you have to say something. You got to address it.
Yeah, they just ignored it.
It says $130,000 on there, the exact amount. Like,
and then
you
grossed
gotta
up,
say
grossed
something.
Up. Yeah.
Like, you gotta say something, and they didn't.
Yeah. How do you account for this paper, the exact amount, it being double plus a bonus? How do you square that, Trump people? Like, the total amount he was reimbursed was double the amount of the $130,000 plus a bonus. We know how much the bonus was. That's written down. We know exactly that it was double. How else do you explain that? How do you explain that it just happened to be a bonus plus double when he was being reimbursed for legal fees? what's the explanation for that? And Lawrence is saying, like, seems like they were just like, well, I hope they don't remember this part, and they just brushed by it.
Well, I mean, even if he said like Trump wasn't in the room, and or you don't know, like they didn't prove, you got to address it, and he did. Yeah, it's just a problem that he didn't.
The DA made this point when he got up to speak, saying, look, you can't accuse Michael Cohen of stealing in the reimbursement scheme if you're also saying he was never reimbursed.
Fact.
And so that's the central...
both things can't be true, right? And I actually was taking some notes on, like defense one, right, is the $420,000 was income. Defense two is Michael Cohen stole part of the grossed up reimbursement. Both things cannot be true.
Right.
You can't accuse Michael Cohen of stealing in the reimbursement scheme if you were also saying he was never reimbursed.
I think the problem that a lot of people are having as they analyze this is that, like, Trump's people are dumb. And so we're used to Trump people believing dumb shit. What we're looking at here in New York is, like, were they able to eliminate all of the dumb people off the jury? Because I think that if there are jurors who decide that Trump's not guilty, it's going to be because they're confused. I don't think it's going to be because they think he's not guilty. I think it's going to be because there was so much shit they can't confidently say Donald Trump is guilty. That's just obviously a guess, but based on the evidence and trying to be reasonable and say, like, how could somebody look at this evidence and not convict Trump? That's the only, like, real scenario that in my head makes sense. I might be missing something, but to me that's the only thing that makes sense. Maybe they were just like, I don't know, and since I don't know, I can't convict somebody, which is fair.
I thought, like, Steinglass also did such a good job of, like, addressing the Michael Cohen thing. Like, at one point he was literally like, we did not choose Michael Cohen. Like, we did not pick him up at the witness store. Like, Donald Trump chose Michael Cohen. And he basically says, for all of the things that you want the jury to now discount Michael Cohen's testimony are the same things that Donald Trump picked Michael Cohen for. That he would lie, that he would cheat, that he was too aggressive, that he would... all the reasons that now Todd Blanche is crying at the end trying to say, oh, what a terrible witness, were all the things that made him a valuable fixer to Donald Trump. Like, they didn't choose him. I can't remember. I think it might have been Karen Agnifilo in her like piece she wrote, but she was like, we all wish that, you know, crimes were witnessed by a school bus of nuns, but unfortunately,
yeah, I liked that. Yeah,
like, that's not always the case.
I do want to point out too, like, this jury doesn't have the benefit that we do of being able to hear from talking heads, but I can tell you that the talking heads on the right aren't discussing things that are going to matter to the jury. Like, right now, the big talking point is that, like we talked about with the jury instructions, explaining that it doesn't have to be all 34 counts. Well, right-wing news people, they're running with this story. This is the story they're running with, that Judge Merchan basically set Trump up to fail, making sure that if the jury, even if the jury thinks he's not guilty, somehow he will be guilty, which obviously is nonsense. And obviously some of these people that are reporting the news know that. What does that tell you about an outlet like Fox News and Sean Hannity parroting that same point? It says that that's the best they've got. That's their best argument. If they had better arguments on the evidence, they wouldn't be like so focused on jury instruction. But that's what but that type of criticism doesn't affect the jury. The jury's never going to hear that. So I'm just saying, like, all this gray area that Republicans are trying to put out there right now, like, that won't affect the jury. And if the attorneys would have done a better job creating gray area, maybe, but I don't, like Lawrence is saying here, nice to see you again today, Lawrence. I don't know if they created that space of doubt.
I concur. Oh, and keep tapping the screen, guys. Let's get to 300K. We're almost there.
Rebecca
I think we can get to 400K today, possibly.
Rebecca wants to know, do you think we'll get video in the Georgia trial? I'm pretty sure they are.
Oh, the Georgia case will be televised. Yeah. So that's one reason to look forward to that, is just it will be like the trial we actually all get to witness together.
Problem that the defense has is that it has theories crashing into each other.
Amen.
And in one side of
their theories contradict their theories. But like, in fairness, like that's, actually I think Ari's gonna make this point. I should stop making all Ari Milber's points. I'm a huge Ari
He
Milber.
stole them from you anyways.
Yeah, I know. I do love hearing like the same ideas echoed. Makes me feel
They
good.
are fully adopting the prosecution case, which is Michael Cohen was reimbursed. But when the defense adopts the idea that Michael Cohen was reimbursed, they then say that in the formula for the reimbursement, Michael Cohen lied and he managed to steal $30,000. So you cannot, as the DA said, you cannot accuse him of stealing and then say he wasn't reimbursed. You can't have that both ways. And so that was one of those things, you know, as a trial develops, you sit there and you wait. When there's something really tough for one side, you just should sit there and wait to hear that side address the most difficult thing they have. And the most difficult thing the defense has is that number, $130,000,
yes,
written in Alan Weisselberg's handwriting on that document. And the defense has never explained it. They've never come close to explaining it. And the prosecution made that very, very clear today, that they've never explained that difficult thing. The difficult challenge for the prosecution today, laid out to them by the defense argument, was Michael Cohen's a liar. You cannot convict Donald Trump on the testimony of Michael Cohen, and it is only Michael Cohen's testimony that says Donald Trump knew and approved the payment of Stormy Daniels before the election. That evidence comes only from Michael Cohen, and the defense insisted you cannot find Donald Trump guilty based on that testimony from Michael Cohen. And so the prosecution did a lot of work on that very point, and did an awful lot of work on corroborating Michael Cohen as much as they possibly could on that very point. And so the prosecution was not afraid to go after the most difficult challenge posed by the defense, but the defense never came close to the most serious challenges posed by the prosecution.
Yeah, we had the prosecution. That was clearer to me in the transcript than anything else that I have seen in terms of the heart of the case and the fight between the prosecution and the defense, is that the prosecution is able to say, here are two documents that are smoking gun documents. And yes, they have something to do with Michael Cohen getting paid, but the reason that we have these documents is that they have been corroborated by other Trump organization personnel. And that is why they are in evidence, and there is no contrary explanation from the defense as to what these smoking gun documents might mean. And that just feels to me to be the sort of unassailable core of where we are. And for all of the time that Joshua Steinglass spent talking today, I mean, that was my biggest takeaway. We've got smoking guns that you can't say anything about, and you haven't.
And you haven't.
Yeah, and the defense doesn't have any comparable so-called smoking gun. There's nothing comparable to that on the defense side of the case.
Lawrence O'Donnell, I know you need to leave where you are standing in order to come sit with us. So please travel safely. We'll see you as soon as you get here. All right. Katie, on that point, in terms of the overall scope of what each side tried to do, but also the salient points that the jury will be able to both remember and may be decisive to them. Do you agree with Lawrence's take there?
I want to disagree with everybody's take to some extent, and I want to kind of bring everybody grounded back into what the realities are. This jury never stayed past 4:30 until now, and this trial has taken it's taken less time than before. So this was a long thing, but this is real life. This is how real trials go. When you have closings, they go long. That being said, Trump is a style over substance guy. So I'm not surprised that his lawyers are style over substance. And you would think that somebody like Todd Blanche, having the experience that he does, would be able to deliver something that was more compelling. So it would be irrelevant if he took 2 hours or 10 if it was going to be compelling. And that's where he loses out to the prosecution.
They keep saying this.
So the
I
prosecution not
appreciate
only has to
MSNBC like taking the high road, but like this is now the 30th person to say this. Todd Blanche doesn't have a case. Like,
Andrew,
he didn't do his best job, or he didn't do the best job. Maybe you can criticize that, but he also doesn't have a fucking case, and that's a real problem for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, he does. Well, he doesn't have a case, but his job is not necessary. Like, if it is in fact a hung jury defense, which that's what it is, right? He's shooting buckshot, hoping one of these little pellets sticks, right, and he gets one of the jurors, then like he doesn't need a full case. He's just poking the holes. And I think Andrew Weissman just made the point of like these are all lawyers. Like Katie Fang's a lawyer, Ari Melber's a lawyer, Chris Hayes is a lawyer, and they're essentially just saying like, as lawyers, I think like Todd Blanche could have done a better job. Like I think they're talking about the quality of. But I agree. He also, I mean, it's hard. What do you do when you're working with nothing?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a hard job.
For sure.
Being compelling, clear, and concise, but he also has the substance, and that's why. So when you have Todd Blanche get up and say, Michael Cohen is the MVP of lies or the globes, the greatest liar of all time. Maybe he was the greatest lawyer of all time, or Donald Trump, right? But when you hear that, you're like, yeah, you snicker a little bit, maybe you chuckle, but that's all you got, and that's really what it is. And so I take umbrage with the idea that this was too long. The prosecutor made it clear this is his only shot. And the jurisdiction's very important to clarify as well. In Florida, for example, if you're the prosecution, you get the sandwich. You go prosecution, defense, prosecution, rebuttal. You don't get that here. So you get the defense to go first and then the prosecution. And so, Steinglass had it prepared, but he also had to pivot a little bit based upon what he heard or maybe what he didn't hear during the defense's closing argument. And so that is why I think you saw it a little bit longer. But you knew it was going to be meaty because you saw it in the openings. And Lawrence, very quickly, when he noted that 49-second reenactment, there is a power in being able to stand up in front of a jury. And I've done this in trials that I've done before when timing is in dispute. And there's no way that you could ID the defendant victim because you only saw the defendant for 15, 20 seconds. Right. And what you do is you stand there in silence for 15, 20 seconds. Mm-hmm. And so when you had Joshua Steinglass today reenact, and not in a rushed manner, the call that remember Blanche spent so much time during his 4-day cross on this October 2016 call. And Steinglass got up and in 49 seconds, he dismantled the entirety of that. So that's the substance that's going to, no pun intended, trump any style that may come from the defense.
Nicole. It was also their choice to stay. I mean, Judge Merchan stopped at 4 and 5 and 7.
No dad jokes today. Have we had a dad joke today? I just realized that when she made that little pun.
I've been trying to put them in, but you keep making people listen to the actual testimony. And I just wanted to point out to the listeners that the 49 seconds she's talking about is about a phone call, not about the relationship between Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels. I just want everybody to be on the same page there. That's what the 49 seconds were.
Giving them off ramps. If they were tired or done, they could have left. He said at the beginning of the day, it will be entirely up to them. Mm-hmm. So the length of the day was not Merchan's decision. It wasn't Steinglass's decision. It was the jury's decision.
Yeah, he did say that at the beginning of the day. Judge Merchan said, like, it would be dependent, like, if the jury is not able to pay attention, it's going to be dependent on if they can make, like, what they can tolerate.
I bring zero expertise to the legal front, except getting picked up in a juror.
She has a great blowout, though.
Today, and I'm just so sort of hostage to the story piece of it. And I think, to sort of steal Ari's analogy, one person has to write like Shakespeare, the other one like a Trump tweet, right? But I don't even think they did that. And what the prosecution had going for it today was the ability to say, take the sex. Sex happened in 2006. Why do you think they paid for it 2 weeks before Election Day?
Preach.
On every element of what they're trying to prove, and they said there are only 3. I mean, the 3 were, if the records were fraudulent, if Trump inspired them to be fraudulent, and if the election was an additional criminal element. I mean, they're asking them to decide 3 pretty narrow things.
Yeah, like what Josh Steinglass was asking was like, was this about the election? Were the records false? And did Trump cause or make them to be made false, right? He doesn't have to do it himself. Like, the question is, did he cause or make them, or I believe like at some point use the word inspire them to be made false.
Thanks for the subs. I don't know what that subwave thing is, but I appreciate those that are subscribing. But Felice, ask and you shall receive. Marlene wants to ask you a question, and the question Marlene would like to know is, why did the dog float in the water?
Why?
Because he was a good boy.
Was he dead? Oh, Bowie.
He's a good boy.
He's a good boy.
Yeah,
That's funny.
that is
Okay, I like that one.
magnificent.
I
That
was
is so
afraid
good.
you were gonna say like he was dead.
Yeah,
Actually, I
you
would
got
have liked
real
that.
morbid on that real
Well, no, that's
fast,
because
didn't
remember
you?
I told you what my favorite joke was? It wasn't until I heard that glass coffin joke from Bad Views. I'll remind you guys of my new favorite dad joke. Do you guys think glass coffins are gonna be a thing?
I don't know why.
It remains to be seen.
That
Get
sucks. That one sucks. I
It
hate that joke.
remains to be
I thought
seen.
I thought Marlene's was funner
Well,
because
no,
the
the reason I
punchline's
got
fun to
dark was
say.
because my favorite joke used to be, "Why did the monkey fall out of the tree?"
I don't know.
Because he was dead.
That sucks. I hate that joke so much.
Come on. That's a great joke.
I still hate it. It's a great joke. I hate it though. Just wanted that on the
That's what I
record.
thought she was going to say about the dog or something. That's what
Was this about the election? Were the records false? And did
Did
Trump,
Trump cause them to
do
be
it?
made?
Right. Trump
And
do
he
it.
didn't even have to write them or sign them, but is he the cause of
Is he the
it?
cause of
And
it?
I think as a story that was told through every witness. And look, I have no idea what the jury's going to do. We have no idea how they experience any single witness, any single day, any single direct, any single cross. But if they have to process a story, I don't know what story they were told
Yes.
about Trump's experience, and I don't know what they stitched together based on the fact that the one witness Trump's side put out
This is a
was
great
an
point.
absolute home run for the prosecution.
Did they talk about Costello?
The phrase that Steinglass closed on when he said two things: listen to the instructions, which suggests a little bit of a tip of the hat there that they've already seen.
I just need to say this. Like, everyone on this stage right now are basically genius level intellectuals, but like, don't sleep on Chris Hayes. Like, if you don't watch All In with Chris Hayes, like, he is, I mean, you could feel like, he basically is a brain trust.
Side put out.
Yeah, if
was
you
an
don't watch All In with
absolute
Chris Hayes, you
home run
probably
for the
have a life.
prosecution.
But we don't, so we watch it.
The phrase that Steinglass closed on when he said two things: listen to the instructions, which suggests a little bit of a tip of the hat there that they've already seen. They have seen the instructions, and
The finals.
He's happy with them, right? So he said, listen to the instructions and use your common sense. And I have to say, following this all day, it's like, to me, again, not as a lawyer,
This is hilarious.
Is what happened exactly what it appears to be? Yes. Based on the testimony and all of the evidence? Or was there some magical other thing that happened here? And that magical other thing that happened was that Donald Trump was just sort of out of it and didn't get in the weeds of like who he's paying money to? Boy, I don't know. Like, and again, this is maybe overly literal for me or the way that I think, but I have found myself, if I'm looking for reasonable doubt as a juror in good faith, I do need some alternate theory.
Yes.
That I could hang on a little bit. Just a little bit to be like, okay.
Or not an all-encompassing theory, but
No, but just
also an explanation
Yes.
for the events as presented, at least in its individual, atomized way.
Yes, and the Cohen stuff, and again, I think the point that Lawrence made of like the one piece of evidence is the testimony that links him directly before the election is the testimony from Michael Cohen. But again, it's like, well, if you zoom out a little bit, like there's just a lot of paper on this and a lot of testimony.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know what the jury's going to do, but in the end, when he says use your common sense, it really does come down to, and the copious rehearsrsal of the testimony and evidence is like, is this exactly what it looks like? Yeah, probably. It's probably exactly what it looks like.
And we're going to talk about this tonight in terms of the the defense's gamble to put its own.
Someone said jury sent a note.
Yeah, I'm
and-
looking at it right now. Yeah. Well, I heard there was a ring, which means it's from the jury. We have our first jury note.
Yeah,
or
they could
verdict,
just
but
be
that's less
asking for
likely, yeah.
clarification. It doesn't necessarily mean like they
There's
can
a-
ask as many questions as they
Yeah,
want
so
to ask.
there's a buzzer in the court, so people will hear it when the jury like has a note or they need clarification on something. They ring that buzzer. So that's
Oh, and I learned this, which I think will help to also kind of get a grasp of what's going on. Like in the state of New York, it's not true in all places, but like the defense has to agree to allowing the jury to have written instructions, like written judge's instructions in front of them. And they said, and I think it's Andrew Weissman who was saying they almost never agree. like to that because they don't want them to know the law. It's not necessarily helpful. So like if they want clarification, they have to ring that buzzer. Like basically Judge Merchan told them like ring the buzzer and I'll answer whatever question.
Hey Felice.
Yes.
Wasn't me would like to know if you know what you call a line of men waiting to get their haircut is called.
What?
A barbecue.
A barbecue.
So stupid.
That's a good one. Come on, that's a good one.
That's when I say if I laugh and say it's stupid, that means I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good. We approve. That's a good one.
Ooh, Michael booed it. Oh, Michael! Somebody mute Michael for 60 seconds for booing that joke. How dare you, Michael? You're getting a mute. But please come back. We love you.
Credibility with the jury on the line by saying Trump didn't have sex with Stormy Daniels, and the Access Hollywood tape was no big deal, and Michael Cohen was an esteemed lawyer for Donald Trump, and that's why he randomly was paid this weird way for that 1 year and then never otherwise paid for them. They did make a lot of claims that they didn't have to make any of those claims. They made all of those claims, none of which are central to disproving the prosecution's case or provoking a sense of reasonable doubt in the jury. They nevertheless made those claims to the jury. They're all very, very much in contrast with what you think would be a common sense take on the matter. Yeah. We're going to talk about why they may have done that. We're also going to give you that moment from the transcript that Katie was just telling us about when the prosecutor acted out the phone call that the defense made central to their case. We have so much more to cover tonight. We'll have that moment from the transcript for you coming up next. Stay with us. From the defense and then the prosecution.
Sorry. Okay.
It's gonna be great.
Citations.
Today's summations from the defense and then the prosecution happened fairly early on in the prosecution summation. The prosecutor acted out for the jury.
From MSNBC 32 seconds ago, jury sent a note in the Trump criminal trial. The jury rang the courtroom. An officer went back into the jury room. The DA team has now entered the room. Jury bell has gone off. They have a note for the judge. Court is reconvening. Stand by as we find out what the note says.
This is crazy. My heart just started. Did any of us hearts start be? Okay, there. See, people are feeling it. My heart's beating really fast. We're gonna be we could be like this for weeks. Does everyone realize that? What if a verdict? Just to be clear, if a verdict came back this fast, that would probably be very bad for Trump. But I don't think it is.
Shout out to whoever the shit this guy is. His name's Jacob Shamsian. Surprising jury note in the Trump trial. They say they want 11 more hours of closing arguments from Joshua Steinglass. I'm guessing that's a conservative, but that's a good joke. That's pretty funny.
Phone call between Michael Cohen and Donald Trump. A phone call as it could have happened. This is an important phone call because the defense had sort of hung a big part of its case on the idea that Michael Cohen, was lying about a phone call that he said he had with Donald Trump about Stormy Daniels. Because that phone call was very short. That phone call was only, I believe, 1 minute and 36 seconds long. Cohen also in that time says he spoke to Trump's bodyguard. He had to speak to Trump's bodyguard, Keith Schiller, and say, hey, will you put Trump on? And then he spoke with Trump about Stormy Daniels. The defense claimed that if it was only 1 minute and 36 seconds, that just wasn't enough time for Cohen to have had any substantive discussion with Trump about Stormy Daniels and about this alleged hush money plot. They said the length of that call, which they had from phone records, effectively disproved that conversation between Cohen and Trump could have gone the way Cohen said. So this is from today's court transcript. This is the prosecutor, Joshua Steinglass, acting, sort of recreating that call and timing himself doing it so the jury could experience in real time how long it might reasonably have taken for Cohen and Trump to have the conversation that Michael Cohen says they had. Joshua Steinglass, the prosecutor. And that brings us to the phone call on October 24th at 8:02 p.m., in which Cohen testified that he called to speak with Mr. Trump. And it turns out that at first he was speaking to Keith Schiller about getting harassing phone calls. And of course, the defense says, aha, that's perjury. The only interpretation of that is that he's lying. That's the only interpretation that they want you to consider. To them, that is the big lie. But that's not the only interpretation. Steinglass says, forgive me for a minute, but let's try a little experiment. I will be Cohen.
Trump has wafted back into
Keith,
the courtroom.
How's it going? It seems like this prankster might be a 14-year-old kid. If I text you the number, can you call and talk to his family? See if you can let them know how serious this is. It's not a joke. Uh-huh. Yeah. All right. Thanks, pal. Hey, is the boss near you? Can you pass him the phone for a minute? I'll wait just a couple of seconds. Hey, boss, I know you're busy, but I just wanted to let you know that this other thing is moving forward with my friend Keith Davidson and the other party that we discussed. It's back on track. I'm going to try one last time to get our friend David Pecker to pay, but if it's not, it's going to be on us to take care of it. Uh-huh. Yeah. All right. Good luck in Tampa. Bye. And then just Steinglass says, 49 seconds.
Boom.
So Katie was just describing this, having been there in court with this type of a moment when the...
I just want to, first, great job by Joshua. I just need to point out in the comments, NC Fireman made a funny, and we need to acknowledge that. He said, breaking news, jury asks judge when the defense is going to give their side.
Wait, hold on, because breakinger news from court reporter Jack Tickle. And Jack wants us to know that my grandma has the eyes of a hawk, the heart of a lion, and a lifetime ban from the zoo.
What?
That's amazing. I'll read it again. My grandma has the eyes of a hawk,
bunch of organs
the heart
from
of a lion,
animals at the
and a
zoo?
lifetime ban from the zoo. That's incredible. That is by far my favorite joke that has ever come through.
I do.
That is like some Norm Macdonald, like that's a Norm Macdonald joke. Maybe it is a Norm Macdonald joke. I don't know. Add to Felice's monkey joke. Tell it 3 times in a row. Say second monkey, third monkey. Then on the fourth monkey, the punchline is peer pressure. So why did the monkey fall out of the tree? Then the second monkey, the third, and then on the fourth monkey, you say the punchline is peer pressure. So 1, 2, and 3 all fell out of the tree because they were dead.
Oh, I get it now. I didn't. Sorry, I didn't get it at first. That's funny. Peer pressure. Okay, and
thank you, Jason.
Any update on the court stuff? Sorry, I'm possibly.
It is a jury note, not a verdict. They will get readback, most likely either of the law or testimony. So they're asking for readback. It's not a verdict.
I need to get my anxiety necklace.
The defense has said, a minute and 36 seconds. That's so fast. You can't get anything done in that time. And then you walk through the jury through something that takes significantly less than that time and say, that didn't seem like it was me screaming through it. That seems viable, doesn't it?
It's so
can we pause it right there?
Leans into the common sense that
it's important when I actually thought that was a good argument by the prosecution, and I think this is the best lawyering, let's call it lawyering, that was done in the case, because when they said like that phone call only lasted a minute and a half, like in my mind, like yeah, that's a short phone call. But when they read what the phone call like potentially could have been, and you know that these are people who like in previous accounts, like remember when Donald Trump was like, we'll just pay it in cash, and Cohen's like, no, we'll figure out financing, and they wouldn't use exact names even when they were together. They wouldn't say exact names. Like, of course this conversation would be quick. I don't know why the first time that didn't register to me, but I think this is some of the best work of the entire case, because I thought that was compelling by the defense. I thought, like, I didn't think it was enough, but it was compelling. And he tore that apart. He absolutely tore that apart.
Yeah, and I thought what was really interesting that Steinglass had so many good moments. Like, I mean, he had 4.5 hours, God knows, and they were good. You know what I mean? He was doing the damn thing. But like in the beginning, he sort of described Cohen as a tour guide. Like, you know, and because the Trump organization spoke in code a lot, like it was Cohen who was best to walk the jury through this story, but they don't need to rely on his testimony because of all this corroboration.
Good point.
It just kind of goes to what you're saying.
Sue just needs to add to that. Number one, to err is human. To blame it on someone else shows management potential.
True that.
Number two, A kid decided to burn down his house. His dad watched with tears in his eyes. He put his arm around the mom and said, "That's arson."
That's arson. Oh my, okay. I love that one.
That's pretty good.
That's arson. Wait,
Also,
how does it start at the beginning again?
A kid decided to burn down his house.
Okay.
His dad watched it with tears in his eyes and put his arm around his mom and said, "That's arson."
I don't know. Arson's funny. You know what I mean? That's my kind of humor. I like that one.
Also, it said 3 dad jokes, and there were only 2 there. If you want to DM me the other one, I'll happily read it. Or maybe I missed the joke, and there was, like, maybe the fact that you said 3 is part of another joke, and I'm just not smart enough to
And
get
now
it.
you're doing it. And now you are the joke. You are the punchline. I'm just saying. Well, maybe this person... I'm not a bully. Okay. Anyways...
The judge is actually going to read as a part of a jury instruction tomorrow to them, that they can rely on their common sense to be able to make decisions in this case during the course of the deliberations. And so when you have the prosecutor get up in a very relatable way, have this reenactment, I'll put it in quotes, because it definitely wasn't based on a transcript, but it sounded totally credible the way that you just read it. And it took only 49 seconds. That's the real life application of what makes it grounded in their sense of common sense, right? And when you have a myriad examples during the course of the closing arguments, Lawrence talked about it as well. How can you say that he didn't get reimbursed, but then you say that he stole it because it was legal services rendered, so he really got legal fees? You can't steal your legal fees, can you?
Amen.
I mean, it's things like that that you're like, as a journalist,
I've got an
That
update
was a great
here
point, Katie Fag. You can't steal your legal fees. You can't have it both ways.
So we have an update on the note. The note contains 4 requests. Number 1, Pecker's testimony of the phone call. Number 2, Pecker and Cohen's testimony on Trump Tower meeting. 3, Pecker's testimony. I've said Pecker so many times today. Pecker's testimony relating to McDougal decision of not to fund. Judge will have the testimony read to the jury, waiting on jury and alternates to come to the courtroom.
What do you mean McDougal decision not to fund? Like, they did fund.
Pecker's testimony relating to McDougal decision of not to fund. If I remember right, on McDougal's testimony, Pecker was like, "I'm not going to pay for this. Like, you guys still owe me."
he paid for McDougal.
Well, if I remember right, didn't he?
He paid for McDougal. That's why he wouldn't pay for Stormy.
Oh, yeah. I thought they gave her a job. I thought they gave her a job.
No, they took like 50 grand off, and Trump was great because he was saving money. Because they gave her, like, they said the value of writing those 10 articles was like, I'm not exactly, I think they valued it at like 50,000, and they knocked 50,000 like off the price. But the reason he wouldn't pay the Stormy Daniels 130,000 was because he was angry because Trump hadn't reimbursed him the 150. That's why Michael Cohen was recording Trump, to show to Pecker that Trump had intention to pay him back, because Pecker was freaking out.
I've got an update. This is from a better source. This is straight from Rebecca Shabad and Gary Grumbach. Here's the 4 things they wanted. Pecker's testimony regarding the phone conversation with Trump while Pecker was in the investor meeting. Pecker's testimony regarding life rights for Karen McDougal.
Oh, okay.
Pecker's testimony regarding the Trump Tower meeting, and Michael Cohen's testimony regarding the Trump Tower meeting. So there we go. That makes more sense.
Will you send that to me, or just text so I have? I mean, never mind. I can find it. You don't have to.
You can't do that, right?
Okay, false alarm, guys. Everyone calm down. Lower your heart rates.
I saw somebody say my BPM is at a steady
I
123.
literally can feel my heart. I need to go get my anxiety necklace, but I can't open the door because I have an angry cat that's gonna just scream and scream if I open the door.
So, for me, if you're the jury, the defense has offered, to Chris's point, has offered a few alternate explanations for the fact pattern that's been presented. One of the most compelling, surprising, memorable moments was when the defense said, "Hey, you know that call that Michael Cohen described where he said he had to get Keith Schiller to get Trump on the phone? Let me tell you what else is in Michael Cohen's phone records around there. Let me tell you about this 14-year-old child that was harassing Michael Cohen. You didn't know about that. This is a rabbit I'm pulling out of the hat. This is a whole new interpretation of this fact pattern. And the reason this is important is not only because it's memorable and it's going to stick in your mind as something the prosecution didn't tell you, but it also disproves that call with Trump ever could have happened. And so even if that was the one most compelling, most memorable thing that the defense produced, Joshua Steinglass today essentially said, wipe that off the balance sheet in terms of whether or not you think you've got a contrary explanation of the facts that punctures the believability of the prosecution's case.
Yeah, I mean, and that I always thought the sort of refutation of that seemed a bit excessive in the cross that they did, like hanging on that phone call, partly because again the totality of the evidence seems so. That you're
one phone call from Cohen to Trump isn't the most important
thing.
Right,
yeah, you take it away and maybe there's a credibility issue, but you still got a lot of other stuff you got to deal with. But to the point that Aria was just making.
Real quick before he gets to his point.
Again.
Yeah, this is a good one too.
Yeah, I want to get that whole thing. But Wasn't Me says, how do cows stay current? They read the Moose paper.
Cow news.
Cow
the
news.
Moose paper.
And then Sue's third joke was, I have a joke about trickle-down economics, but 99% of you won't ever get it.
Amen. Amen.
Right. Keep going.
Story of my life and capitalism in general.
Giving people enough, like there's just, is there someone there you're giving enough to just be like, no, I don't, no. Like, what about X? What about Y? What about Z? As ammunition for a hung jury.
Yeah.
Right? And you just, I'm not going to
this
say
is
what
the
you
part.
said to me during the commercial break because I thought it was a really smart point. You should actually make it on air. But how's that for a tease? I was tempted to steal it. But the point that you made about a strategy for an acquittal versus strategy for a hung jury. Just talk about that because I think it actually helps me make sense to Rachel, your point of what they're trying to do. Because what I find is there's no.
Yeah, I stole this from Ari Melber.
So then what?
Yeah, and I think that's why this sometimes sounds like a lot of silly and meandering arguments. Many people have observed that the Trump approach from his lawyers during the case and in today's closing were meandering. I think they're meandering because it's only a strategy to get a hung jury, which means one or two holdouts is good enough. You don't get a verdict, that's hung jury, and they probably don't retry the case, so that plays as Trump skates. And that's different than an acquittal strategy. If you remember OJ, you say there's really bad evidence, there's even DNA evidence. The acquittal strategy is a completely alternative theory. Some might call it a conspiracy theory, but it's one that touches all the evidence. So you say, yeah, no, there is bad DNA evidence of blood, because they planted his blood on the scene, and you have this full theory. There's nothing like that here. There's way too many open questions. There's way too many obvious things that they have not even tried, the defense lawyers for Trump, to explain. They literally haven't. All they're doing is this strategy of questions, reasonable doubt, hung jury, get one or two people. And so earlier we were talking as well about it's pretty bonkers, bananas, not believable to say that the Access Hollywood tape was not a problem for the campaign.
Yeah.
We checked. I mean, many of us have done our homework. It's the only time we could find a public apology ever uttered by Donald Trump.
That's such a good point. And they're going to get into this deeper now, which I think is so important. I think one of the worst things Todd Blanche did was insult the jury's intelligence and basic memory, right? Like, we all lived through the Access Hollywood tape. We all knew that that was a 5-alarm fire for that campaign. And then on top of that, Hope Hicks testified in detail to what a big deal that was.
Real quick, Jennifer sent a donation, just said Jennifer just said, for Felice after yesterday, for lollipops, coffee, whatever you want.
Thank you so much. I cried in the bottom of the shower for a couple hours. Jay was so nice to me, and so was Jed. All I've got to do is be completely insulted within an inch of my life, and all of a sudden people are nice.
Don't get used to it, especially not with Jen. Don't get used to that.
Jen, I really think I'm growing on Jen like a fungus. I'm inching my way slowly into her life. You know what I mean?
But even fungus doesn't grow on ice, so I don't know if that's gonna work.
True. She's not gonna know what happened. One day she's just gonna care about me.
This ice ball get covered in moss, Felice.
You're terrible. No, he actually said, if you go back on the tape, I said these things I was wrong. I'm sorry.
It's also the only time the jury heard him speak in the trial.
Yeah.
So he doesn't
Yeah.
testify.
Yeah.
Oh,
One
yes.
of the only times they saw him on camera speaking is in the C-SPAN entry into evidence.
Yeah, let's replay this because it's so important. Yeah, like the only time this jury saw Trump speak was when he was speaking about what a big deal the Access Hollywood tape is. That's all the only thing they saw Trump say. So for then Todd Blanche to be like, the Access Hollywood tape wasn't a big deal, like in whose world, Todd?
Yeah.
On Earth 1 or Earth 2?
And also everybody in the chat, anybody who feels sorry for Jen right now, I literally can't show you my DMs from Jen because like we would get taken down. So I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear.
That could
If you
mean
saw
so
my
many
DMs,
things.
like today when I said David Pecker, Jen sent like 80 dildo gifts.
Jen's meme game is on fleek. It's
So
it's
good.
like it's on
Top
10
tier.
all the time. I don't know how you guys do memes so fast. I think I just missed the meme boat. Like I'm not good at it. I feel like I'm not as good at Discord as everyone else in that Discord.
That's true.
Like,
You suck.
like
at
by the
Discord.
time I think of something to type, like we've passed 10 different conversations. You know what I mean? And I'm still on like the one 3 minutes ago.
Said these things. I was
Okay, this
wrong.
is important.
I'm sorry.
It's also the only time the jury heard him speak in the trial.
Yeah.
So he doesn't
Yeah.
testify.
Yeah.
But one of the only times they saw him on camera speaking is in the C-SPAN entry into evidence where the C-SPAN archivist came up and they entered the tape of Trump to camera at a podium saying, this is going to cost me thousands of female votes. This is going to poison me in the mind of the voters after Access Hollywood. So the only thing that the jury has heard Trump say in 5 weeks is that the Access Hollywood tape is going to kill him with women voters. That's all they've heard.
And so it's not, I wouldn't call it believable, even by the most fair standard. But for a hung jury to get one juror to say, you know, I don't remember it all that well. People say all sorts of things. I don't think this was for the campaign. I don't even think it was that bad for the campaign. That's what the lawyer said. I think this was all about his family. And then if you start projection, which is not the best thing, jurors aren't supposed to project. They're supposed to use the evidence. But a person projecting their own life might say, I could understand that, not wanting that to come out. I've never run for office. And now what are we talking about? We're talking about the reasonable doubt of somebody's theories about family and not a campaign
Okay,
crime.
so this we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about exactly this point, because this was a really important moment, especially I think for those of us who are not lawyers watching this, because you get to a point which is not about the law. And it is a little bit about history, about what actually happened during the campaign. But
Oh,
it
yeah,
is also
this is
something
great.
that
This is
all
when
of
we'll
the
see the
jurors
text
will
and stuff.
personally remember. Right. And so when your defense counts on telling the jurors what you think you lived through, what you think you remember, didn't really happen that way. Let me tell you a different way it went. That is when you are playing with people's psychology in a way that is very unsettling to the non-lawyers among us. And we're going to talk about that in detail when we come back. Stay with us.
We're gonna stay. We're gonna stay here. Let me check the comments.
Hold on. I'll pause it. Did you say there's comments?
No, I said I'm just gonna check the comments.
Okay.
That's all. Nope,
Guys,
nothing in
keep tapping the screen. We're doing it. Tap, tap, tap. And we are taking opposition. I don't know. Doesn't seem like anyone wants to talk about this right now.
Well,
But
I get that. Like, it's
I
pretty
do too.
hard.
I get
it's
it
pretty
too. I
hard
wouldn't
right now
probably go
to-
into it.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? You're gonna come up and make a prediction? There's, this is, it's questionable. I've just been reading through, people's breakdown of the jury notes. It's pretty split on what this means, but I don't see anybody saying this is a good sign for the defense. Because what it appears they're trying to do is corroborate stories, and if they read that
Yeah,
information
well,
again, I think it corroborates.
Like
I don't.
I what it tells me, like my first instinct was like, okay, what Steinglass did worked. Like he hammered home like the point of like,
Yeah.
without Michael Cohen, there's enough information, you know, to make this work. So let's say let's say they got back there to deliberate. They did a straw poll. Like, okay, let's see where everyone's heads are at. Like, who thinks guilty? You know, they took everyone's temperature. And now, like, someone's doubting. Let's say someone's saying, Michael Cohen isn't trustworthy. So now they're getting they're using what Steinglass did, and they're getting corroborating evidence, right? And they're going to go through it. Like, they're retrying. I mean, they're thinking.
Yeah, I think you're dead on that. Like they're going over the exact things that the prosecution.
There's two
wants them to go
litigators in
over.
there. One's a corporate lawyer, one's in corporate law, and I can't remember. Maybe a civil litigator. I can't remember. But yeah. So there are two lawyers in there that can, in some way. And this is an interesting piece of information.
Those two will be heavily influential, I'd imagine. If they all get along, just like we would, if we were in that jury room and there were two lawyers,
kill each other.
But you and I would be like, all right, let's listen to the lawyers. Like they are going to have like an outsized level of influence over everybody else. Like those are probably the two they're looking at, and I think that bodes well. Like if we're talking about, I think everybody kind of agrees that if we get a hung jury, or if we get you're not going to get a not guilty, but if you get a hung jury, that's what the defense is relying on. But if you have two people in there that are attorneys and they're going over the evidence like this, and we know what the evidence looks like, the evidence is pretty compelling. I don't think that's a good sign for Trump.
Well, I think I don't know. Like, it's hard to say. I listened to a lot of lawyers talking yesterday. Like, a lot of times, like, that were shocked that either side allowed there to be litigators on the jury, because it can mean sometimes lawyers will nitpick, they said, and focus on little details. And then, there was a former federal prosecutor who was like saying, like, I was on a jury and I was ostracized on that jury because people were like annoyed by my legal expertise almost. So he's like saying it go either way. But I also agree, this was some interesting information I learned yesterday that might help to paint a picture. In New York, in the state of New York, there's no jury foreman. It's just automatically assigned to whoever is seated first, juror number one. So yeah, probably they were saying like there's usually like 2 to 4 leaders that are emerge in juries. Then like there's the middle of the pack, and there's like 3 to 4 followers. And so like I was listening to someone like kind of break down the psychology of a jury and how they usually drag people over the line. It is very interesting to listen to, jury consultants.
Joe Smo says, a wife to her husband, big news, I'm pregnant. Her husband responds, hi, pregnant, I'm dad. Wife responds to the husband, no, you aren't. That was the big news.
That was the big news. No, just kidding. That would be horrible. Oh, my God.
But it would be fun. Like, at least later on, you might appreciate the way in which it unfurled. That's a nice way for that to unfurl.
Unfurl.
October 7th, 2016, a month before the election. The tape itself was from 2005, 11 years earlier. And as you heard from witnesses, this was an extremely personal event for President Trump. Nobody, and again, I'm just going to state the obvious, nobody wants their family to be subjected to that sort of thing. But the government wants you to believe that the release of that tape from 2005 was so catastrophic to the campaign that it provided a motive for President Trump to do something criminal. Again, this is Trump's defense counsel, quote, but there is no evidence of that. President Trump did not.
I'm sorry, I just have to say, Uncle Buttcrack in the comments said, how does The Rock urinate? He Dwayne's his Johnson.
That's so good. That's
okay,
really
Uncle
good.
Buttcrack. I don't know about that name, but that was funny. He Dwayne's his Johnson.
That's
it's
solid.
A funny thing to say. Okay, again, just to clarify what we're listening to, like, this is Todd Blanche's own words from the transcript, basically trying to gaslight the jury to change their own memories and make them believe that the Access Hollywood tape was not a thing back then.
Wants you to believe that the release of that tape from 2005 was so catastrophic to the campaign that it provided a motive for President Trump to do something criminal. Again, this is Trump's defense counsel, quote, but there is no evidence of that. President Trump did not react to the Access Hollywood tape in any way the government is suggesting. You heard the politicians reacted negatively to the Access Hollywood tape. They didn't testify. You heard that there was even talk about something consequential for President Trump, who was a Republican nominee. But none of that happened. None of that is true.
What?
You heard that President Trump and his campaign got ready for the debate, responded to the allegations, and continued campaigning. So there were a couple days of frustration and consternation, but that happens all the time in campaigns, and we know that. The Access Hollywood tape is being set up in this trial to be something that it is not.
Do you guys hear that? Do you guys hear what Todd Blanche is doing?
Yeah.
That he's both sidesing it. He literally, like, the disease of the both sides is spreading to criminal court. I bet Donald Trump got a hold of him and was like, this is how I handle it at Trump rallies. Like, that's what he's doing. He's like, oh, it's both campaigns are corrupt. Both campaigns are crazy. Like, both campaigns are going through emergencies. That tape was no big deal. It's both sides. I can't believe that Todd Blanche did the both sides argument in a criminal trial.
Yeah, the other side was responding to apparent, like, pretty bullshit charges,
like, that doesn't
claims that were brought up by,
anything, you know, just be like, but both sides. Like, Todd Blanche has been MAGA'd. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's been, like, we've been saying, like, he bought a house next to Trump. He's pretty much given up his credibility in life, like, for Trump. And, like, if I've ever heard it right there, like, that he both sides did.
I think in the not so distant future, like, MAGA is going to be a qualifying condition for a lot of things. I think
a precursor.
Yeah.
Campaign got ready for the debate, responded to the allegations, and continued campaigning. So there were a couple days of frustration and consternation, but that happens all the time in campaigns, and we know that. The Access Hollywood tape is being set up in this trial to be something that it is not. It was one of many stressful stories and issues that came up during the 2016 campaign. It was not a doomsday event. President Trump, as you saw, addressed it in a video that was addressed to the release to the American public. He addressed it in a debate a couple days later. He never thought it was going to cost him to lose the campaign, and indeed, it didn't.
What?
It was
Except
not
for
a doomsday event.
Hope
That was
Hicks
from
said the
Trump defense
opposite.
counsel,
So did
Todd
David
Blanche
Tucker.
today in his summation to the jury, claiming that the Access Hollywood tape was no big deal. And obviously, you can argue about whether or not it makes sense for Trump's defense to try to make this claim that there was no new sense of urgency around Trump's various creepy sex scandals in October 2016, right before the election, right after that tape came out. The strategic importance of making this claim is not, at least to me, particularly obvious on its face.
Yeah, like Donald Trump just wanted it. Like, he just wanted him to do this. This doesn't help. You're insulting the jury's intelligence and gaslighting them and saying, hey, the way we all remember this happening, oh, it didn't happen.
Actual claim, right, from the Trump defense, the factual record about whether or not that tape was a big deal, that is an empirically observable thing. That is a thing we can check. Yeah. Did it matter at the time? We were all alive and sentient when it happened. We can remember. We can check.
Trump tape bombshell. Donald Trump caught on a hot mic months after marrying Melania, making vulgar comments about groping women, saying when you're a star, they let you do it.
Notice the hurricane graphic at the very beginning.
Trump to hurricane.
Going away. No, it's this thing. When the Access Hollywood tape came out just a month before the 2016 election, it did knock hurricane news out of the news cycle. It was what NBC News' Lester Holt described at the time as a bombshell. Not only did Trump's comments about grabbing straight for women's genitals make front page news across the country, the news really did, in real life, lead to an avalanche of Republicans calling for Trump to drop out of the race. Look at all these people.
So this is, you guys can't read. So these are all the Republicans.
I'm so glad they have this.
Yeah, I told you. She did a great job on this. Actually, let's go back really quick because I also want to read those news headlines. I'm just going to wait till they pop up.
Trump's comments about...
So the news headline, it's New York Times, tape reveals Donald Trump bragging about groping women. The Washington Post, Trump recorded having extremely lewd conversation about women in 2005. And the Wall Street Journal, Donald Trump's lewd comments about women spark uproar.
Grabbing straight for women's genitals make front page news across the country. The news really did, in real life, lead to an avalanche of Republicans calling for Trump to drop out of the race.
So this is Senator Mark Kirk from Illinois. Oh, the golden boy, Senator John Thune from South Dakota. Oh, the worst of the worst. Senator Mike Crapo. Is it Crapo or Crapo? I can never remember it. Idaho.
Shitto, I think.
Definitely doesn't think women should have any say in anything. John Huntsman, former governor of Utah. Representative Mia Love, Utah. Representative Mike Kaufman, Colorado. Representative Joe Heck, Nevada. Senator Dan Sullivan, Alaska. Senator Susan Collins, Maine. Representative Martha Roby, Alabama. Representative Ann Wagner, Missouri. Representative Rodney Davis, Illinois. Senator Mike Lee, the guy stumping for Trump at the Libertarian Convention, licking boots.
Who then, by the way, Mike Lee compared Trump later on to Captain Moroni, who's like a character in the Book
angel?
of Mormon.
He's a
the
prophet.
guy that's on top of the temples.
temples.
That's Moroni, and Moroni was like this ultra righteous, like
Tap the
war
screen
leader.
while Jay talks to us about religion.
And I need to tell you guys more about the Mormon faith and convert you. But yeah, like all of these people, so many. Lisa Murkowski was out there, like all these people, Cory Gardner, that have just like eventually just were like, yeah, fuck it, yeah, he's the greatest. Like all these people had, they had a pulse at one point, they had a backbone at one point. But this was the turning point for the Republican Party. This is when the Republican Party.
Lisa Murkowski still hates Trump and votes against him.
Oh yeah, maybe
the senator from Alaska. She's not on this list. Lisa Murkowski is one of the only. I would say.
Oh, she's on my list.
She's the reason the first Indigenous woman representative, the one that beat out Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Lisa Murkowski basically is a Republican who campaigned for a Democrat. Her name is slipping my mind, but the representative that beat out Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Lisa Murkowski basically campaigned for her, and they're like close friends, and they both hate Trump. So Lisa Murkowski I don't think she's that bad.
Well, now I forgot my point, so I'm glad that Lisa Murkowski is vindicated, but you didn't get to hear something amazing that I might have said.
It will come to you. Is it about Mike Lee?
I don't remember.
Okay, well, the only other people I don't really recognize any other people. Representative Bradley Byrne from Alabama, Deb Fischer from Nebraska, Senator Deb Fischer from Nebraska, Governor Dennis Doggard from South Dakota, which again, now we have Kristi Noem, Senator Cory Gardner, Colorado, Representative Scott Garrett, New Jersey, Representative Barbara Comstock, Virginia. But again, this is the gaslighting of Todd Blanche to say this was no big deal. Now I think she's going to show some tweets. Like Ronna McDaniel, the chair of the RNC, was commenting.
This is the New York Times. Lewd Donald Trump tape is a breaking point for many in the GOP. This is the Washington Post. 36 Republicans have now called for Donald Trump to drop out.
Yep.
Here's the local view from swing state Michigan. State Republican leader Ronna Romney McDaniel says Trump's talk about women is disgusting. This was the headline in Politico. Republican women are done with Trump.
It was a crisis.
That all happened.
Rachel Maddow always brings the receipts. You know what I mean? Like, she's a real, like, investigative journalist. Like, I would love to be on her research team. Can you imagine how great that would be?
No. No.
What do you mean?
Nope.
Yeah, I know. You need me. Oh my God, I feel so loved.
Whatever you need to feel to stay here, that's fine. Yes, it's love. It's not insecurity. It's none of that. It's all love.
Not that long ago in our living memory. Today in closing arguments, Trump's defense tried to argue that the Access Hollywood tape was just a normal day on the campaign trail with no real consequences. Trying to tell the jury that even though the timing of the evidence makes it look like Trump's side suddenly got motivated to quash the Stormy Daniels story days after the tape.
Hey, has anyone heard from Billy Bush? It was a big deal from him. They paid him like $20 million. Didn't they pay him like millions of dollars to go away? Like, his life was basically ruined by this. And the man who did it, who said it, had no consequences. Like, where is Billy Bush? Like, is he still on this earth? Nobody knows.
Yeah, I haven't seen him, but that's how things go in the
Ghost
Trump
bus. Yes,
like Trump does something, and people love holding people accountable unless it's Trump. So Trump will do something and then they'll punish people in his orbit. That's kind of how this always works.
Like, if
dude loses his career, he didn't bring this up. He thought he was just talking to Trump, and then Trump brings this up, and now he has to go away.
Yeah, because he didn't, like, I guess, say something in response. What are you supposed to do when Donald Trump just starts talking about assaulting people? I don't know.
Well, that can't really be right, because Trump had no reason to worry about the impact of that tape. It had no impact.
Right? No impact.
Why make an argument like that? That is so easily disprovable, even by people's own living memories, right? All these jurors, these jurors are not junior high school students. They were all old enough in 2016 to have lived through it and to remember it. Even if they did forget living through it, in her testimony in court this month, Hope Hicks, the Trump campaign press secretary when the tape came out, described the release of the Access Hollywood tape by saying this. She said, quote, "I had a good sense to believe this was going to be a massive story." Quote, "I think there was a consensus among all of us that the tape was damaging and that this was a crisis." Hicks also went on to describe how it pushed hurricane news out of the news, making this claim to the jury, Nicole, that what you lived through and what you must remember about this moment didn't happen.
Yeah, and I think that's why the prosecution has reason to feel decently confident that they've made a strong case on the underlying piece, right? And if you're a student of Trump's social media posts, you can smell his panic.
Yeah.
They're not worth platforming on a program like this. But I think that that Blanche's need...
If you're interested in checking it out, they aren't worth platforming. But Trump has been nonstop truthing. Like, he is... like, that's his therapy or something.
My favorite thing about Donald Trump truthing is that I get all of his truth from Twitter. Like, that's how shitty his side is.
And
the only
lies.
reason people know that he truths is
it's
either...
It's funny because they're lies.
Yeah,
they're truth.
They're either us and we're like crazy, or I guess they're you and you like spend time on Truth Social, or it's me and I just get it all from X. But I think most people get it from Twitter. I'm not going to say X. I'm going to keep trying that.
It's you, RTV. Sorry, I was just reading the comments. Guys, keep tapping the screen. We're almost to 400K.
To address Access Hollywood speaks to the strength of the part of the...
Oh, you know what I want to do? Because we don't have as much time. I'm going to go to the part that and I believe I remember this is sad. I have the minutes memorized of this broadcast. That's so disturbing. That's when you know you have a problem. I want to make sure we get to this part that...
I'm just working on a copyright issue we have right now. So
we have.
Well,
what did you do?
Well, I didn't do it. What did you do? This is your outline.
We are getting a copyright strike.
Yeah, but I think we're okay under fair use, because what you have to do is you have to add commentary, and you have to break it up so you're not just like playing somebody else's broadcast. And I think we're okay. I'm just making sure.
Sorry, I'm almost there, I think. Yeah, it's after this commercial. This is just an important part that I need to make sure we get to. It's when, like, the judge, like, Todd Blanche basically said something like no lawyer is allowed to say. Like, he started talking about sentencing. And then the
defense, Trump's defense lawyer, was ending his summation. So basically, the climax of Trump's final case to the jury, Judge Merchan seemed to get quite mad at Trump's defense counsel. Judge Merchan is not a man who is like easily ired. But what happened in front of the jury was an objection from the prosecutor at the end of Trump's closing statement. The prosecutor objected. Judge Merchan sustained the objection. But then the jury was sent out of the room. And what happened after the jury was out of the room was a thing. It was a notable confrontation. It was a notable admonition to Trump's lead defense counsel, and it led to the jury being told something sort of unexpected after they were brought back in after lunch. So it was kind of the big drama involving Judge Merchan of the day, and here's how it went. Todd Blanche, Trump defense counsel.
Wait, I just want to say something. This is when he gets. Remember, I was saying, like, do you know anyone who gets quiet when they're mad? Like, that's judgment. This is like that moment.
And it led to the jury being told something sort of unexpected after they were brought back in after lunch. So it was kind of the big drama involving Judge Merchan of the day. And here's how it went. Todd Blanche, Trump defense counsel. I'm going to end this summation the same way I told you a few minutes ago, that you know you cannot rely on him, meaning Michael Cohen, which is that all those lies under oath, lies to his family, lies when it matters, lies when it doesn't matter, all those lies, put them aside for just a moment. That's alone enough to walk away. But then he came in here, again, meaning Michael Cohen, he raised his right hand and he lied to each of you repeatedly. You cannot send somebody to prison. You cannot convict somebody. Steinglass, the prosecutor, objection. Judge Merchan, sustained. Trump's defense counsel, Blanche, you cannot convict somebody based upon the words of Michael Cohen. So, thank you for paying attention. I know it was a long morning. We went through a lot of evidence, but it's important. It's important to President Trump. It's important, of course, to his family. And I meant what I said in the beginning. It's clear that you all have been paying very close attention for the past 5 weeks, and that matters. That's very important. You know, this isn't a referendum on your views of President Trump. This is not a referendum on the ballot box, who you voted for in 2016, 2020, or who you plan on voting for in 2024. That's not what this is about. The verdict that you are going to reach has to do with the evidence you heard here in this courtroom and nothing else. Nothing else that you knew or thought about President Trump or about any of the other folks that testified, but just the evidence that you heard from the witnesses, the recordings, and the documents. If you do that, if you focus just on the evidence you heard in this courtroom, this is a very, very, very quick and easy not guilty verdict. Thank you.
Is it?
That is the conclusion of Donald Trump's case to the jury. And then Judge Merchan says, thank you, jurors. We're going to take our lunch and recess at this time. I'll see you at 2 p.m. Enjoy your lunch. Court officer, all rise. Everybody rises, jury exits. And the judge said, after the jury's gone, the judge says, you may be seated. Meaning, nobody else is going anywhere, even though the jury is.
Flag on the field.
And then Mr. Steinglass, the prosecutor, says, we would like a curative instruction for that ridiculous comment that Mr. Blanche made at the end of his summation about sending the defendant to prison.
A curative instruction mean like damage has been done, right? Like this case has now been diseased and there needs to be a cure applied, right? Like this needs to be remedied.
There is no requirement of prison.
Curative?
Punishment is something that's explicitly
coffee? I thought she was talking about coffee.
Oh, you're making a terrible Jay made a funny, everyone, about Keurigs.
Shut up. Go back to shut up. I hate you. Shut up.
Told not to consider. And that was a blatant and wholly inappropriate effort to cull sympathy for their client. Judge Merchan then says to Trump's defense.
Yeah, he basically, like what Todd Blanche basically said, was trying to get it in the jury's mind, like, just know, like, you're sending this guy to prison, and it's a former president, right? And that's a scary, he's basically trying to, like, get that in their head. Like, if you convict, if you find him guilty, like, you're relegating a former president of the United States to prison.
Counsel, let me hear your comment about prison. Todd Blanche, pardon? The judge, let me hear you about your comment about prison. Todd Blanche, I mean, Your Honor, there is already an instruction that you're going to give as part of the charge on that, and so we don't think there needs to be a curative instruction. Judge Merchan, I'm going to give a curative instruction. And then Judge Merchan says this, quote, I think that saying that was outrageous.
He's saying this quietly.
Please have a seat. For someone who has been a prosecutor as long as you have, and a defense attorney as long as you have, you know that making a comment like that is highly inappropriate. It is simply not allowed, period. It is hard for me to imagine how that was accidental in any way. I will give a curative instruction. I will ask the people, meaning the prosecution, to draft one up, and I will give it. See you at 2 o'clock. Prosecutor, Mr. Steinglass, thank you. And then the luncheon recess is taken. Everybody goes away for lunch, and then this is what happens after lunch. The prosecutors now, so the defense has finished. They have stopped their case. This is it, they're done. The prosecutors are about to start their closing argument, and this is how it starts. The judge says, let's get the jury, please. The sergeant says, all rise, jury entering. The jury enters. Judge Merchan says, you may be seated. The clerk says, case on trial continued. All jurors are present and properly seated. And then the judge immediately says this, jurors, before we hear the people's summation, there is an instruction that I wanted to give you. During the defense summation, you heard Mr. Blanche asking, in substance, that you not send the defendant to prison. That comment was improper, and you must disregard it. In your deliberations, you may not discuss, consider, or even speculate about matters relating to sentence or punishment. If there is a verdict of guilty, it will be my responsibility to impose an appropriate sentence. A prison sentence is not required for the charges in this case in the event of a guilty verdict. And then he says, people, meaning prosecution, it's time to get started. Mr. Steinglass, the prosecutor, says, thank you, Your Honor, counsel, and members of the jury. Good afternoon. What did Todd Blanche do so wrong that it evinced that at this crucial moment from Judge Merchan? Joining us now is former FBI General Counsel Andrew Weissman. He was also at the courthouse today for today's closing arguments. Andrew, what happened?
Love him.
So this is totally taboo. You do not, and everyone knows, you do not raise, as Jen said, the issue of punishment. You do not raise the issue of going to jail. And I think one of the best ways to understand what's going on here is the reality of the fact that this is the former president of the United States. And what Todd Blanche was doing here, and then I'm going to turn for a moment to what Josh Steinglass did at the end of his summation, because I think they're rooted in the same way. I think that what's happening here is this was a way of trying to raise the burden on the state to really say to the jury, are you really sending this person to jail? The former president and maybe the future president of the United States. Totally an improper argument. It is absolutely clear that the judge was right to give the curative instruction. One thing to note is it was so clear that the defense actually agreed, made no objection to the curative instruction that was given, the one that was drafted up that you just read. They were given an opportunity to object and they didn't. And it's because, the bell was rung. The jury heard it. And frankly, even getting the curative instruction kind of again reinforces it. So the defense was really trying to raise.
So what he says, and I think he says this, Andrew Weissman says this later on Lawrence O'Donnell's show, and we're obviously not going to have time to watch that, is that why he's saying, what's his name? Todd Blanche really messed up and he didn't appeal. So whatever the curative instruction was that Judge Merchan read can't be appealed, or it can't be a reason to overturn the case or anything because Todd Blanche did not appeal it.
So it appears another note from the jury came in at 3:51, 6 minutes ago.
Still, I'm gonna have a heart attack.
Jury, don't worry. This one you don't need to. Jury's requesting to hear the judge's instructions again, so they'll be brought back into the room.
That's what I said.
And the judge will give them instructions again. Yeah.
They can't have them written because only if the defense agrees, which Andrew Weissman says the defense never agrees. So periodically there just might have to file back in and the judge is just gonna have to say it all again.
The bar for the state. And the same way that I think that Josh Steinglass, in a way that was objectionable, but not sort of in the same category, where at the end of his summation, he was saying about Donald Trump, you know what? He cannot shoot somebody, as he has famously said, on Fifth Avenue and not be held to account. What he was getting at is the concern that the jury is going to hold the state to an even higher burden than beyond a reasonable doubt because he is the former president. And this was saying, you know what? He's just like everyone else. He's got to be held to the same standard of complying with the law. And so I think that's why you saw both lawyers trying to figure out a way to either play that to their advantage or to sort of raise the burden or to lower the burden to what it should be. So I think that's a real reality that's going on in the courtroom.
Andrew, can I just ask you about whether they're taking on a level of risk in doing so? As you say, in both of those cases, objections were sustained. In the first case when the defense did it.
What?
Sorry, I meant to mute and I unmuted. I was just trying to get my dogs not to bark at the
I don't know what just happened. I did not push pause. My computer just wheel of death.
Oh, maybe it was my. Well,
I don't know if my.
It's 1 o'clock.
That's so
good timing.
random. I know. It's
a good time.
Super random, but okay.
Well, let me do this while you
My
figure
cat
it out.
has cut the internet until I pay attention to him.
Let me figure
Chewed
this out. 'cause
through the wires.
People have asked. Dorothy, come here. This is Dorothy.
There was the
Oh,
judge
sorry. It
explicitly
just
told
started
the-
again.
That's Dorothy. Say
Hi, Dorothy. So cute.
Rose, come here. Oh shit, she's cut. Rose, come here. Come here. And this is Rose, and they're sisters, and
Oh,
they're named
there's
after the
two.
Golden Girls. So I do have 2 dogs, and now they're both excited to meet you all. All right, go. Lay down, please. Go. So that's the puppies. That's Dorothy and Rose.
And I have a black cat named Mr. Mittens.
It's true.
Might have met him. Anyways, it's what are we? Do you want to continue? We can, or I cannot hear you.
Sorry, I was gonna say it's up to you. I'm a little concerned about continuing to play the MSNBC broadcast. Like that's there may be some things I need to go into on our YouTube. I just don't want.
I
to
thought you were
catch a
talking
strike.
about.
On
Oh,
TikTok?
you were
No,
talking
no, it's
about
on
YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just can't play. I see what you're saying.
I know that
Like,
there's fair use, but we may be in a gray area here because they didn't shut it down, but they're just saying like it may be temporarily blocked. I need to probably figure out the fair use stuff exactly. I don't want to get the live taken
Yeah,
down.
no.
on
Now that I
YouTube.
think, I sometimes I forget that we stream to YouTube. Like it just, you know what I mean? Because like yeah, their strategies for that are very different. Like on TikTok, it's much more allowed to stream. I mean, I pay for YouTube TV. I'm not. This is not just. You know what I'm saying? Like I am a subscriber of YouTube TV.
Well, I know there used to be. I mean, it's MSNBC that the copyright will be from.
I'm just
and
saying,
know-
I pay YouTube money for the broadcast that we're watching.
Oh yeah.
Is what is the point I'm trying to make. Like I'm paying them for the access to this show.
If there's anybody that does understand fair use like really, really well, DM me just because I may have some questions, and then we'll get back to it tomorrow. Hopefully, look, if a judgment comes in, we will immediately go live. We talked about this morning. No matter when the jury comes back with a verdict, we'll be live at that point. So if it comes in later today, we'll go live. If it's early tomorrow morning, we'll go live. We'll definitely jump on as soon as there is a verdict. But for now, that's the end of our show today, and you can find us here Monday through Friday, 9:30 a.m. to 1 Pacific Standard Time. Let me check messages real quick. Felice, do you have any last words?
No, I think we are good. Yeah, we'll just plan on going live if and when we hear about something. But tomorrow, like more specifically, what I'm gonna be like looking for tonight is I'm gonna get the full summary of like the judge's charge and all of that, and we'll go over that tomorrow. So in terms of the jury instructions and when they're asking for these instructions to be reread, like what are the instructions so we can, make some determinations.
Jury's back in the courtroom now. They'll get they have not yet heard the 4 things they asked for before and the instructions. So it looks like they're coming back into the court. They'll discuss all 4 of their questions as well as get jury instructions one more time, and then likely back to Mordor or wherever they go. You can find us on YouTube. Hopefully we didn't fuck that up today. The link is in my bio. If you head on over there, if you subscribe, maybe like a couple videos while you're there, that would be super appreciated. Also, if you want to hang out with us, we'll be pretty active on in Discord today, or at least I will be monitoring this situation. So if you want to hang out with us in Discord, it's a lot of fun. There's book groups, there's fun people, there's Jen. Jen's there also.
Jen's fun.
So come hang out in Discord. We'd love to have you. If you want an invite for that, shoot me or Jen a DM. Spoiler alert, if you DM me or Jen, you're just DMing Jen because she has all my I don't even know my own passwords at this point. So either way, that message will get to Jen. Did I get it all?
I think so. I think we're good.
Marvelous
Guys,
job today,
breathe
Felice,
deep.
as always.
We could make it through this time, but probably see you in a couple hours, or we'll be doing this for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know if I can do more.
I know.
Of this.
I don't even. It's not going to be good.
All right, everybody. We'll see you
guys
tomorrow or later. Bye.